What in the fuck, man? No. You can when we have been dealing with, what are we at, 30 to 40 terror attacks this year already. And I mean literal, overt shootings, fire bombings, some of them murders. We say extenuating circumstances have been created by the left. We don't want to live this way, but there's a reason why we're deploying ICE, CBP, and National Guard. If you come out to an ICE facility and you are causing these problems, you will be arrested.
I would even go a step further. I would say you take a look at these networks. They have a safe house in Portland.
Yeah.
There's an address. And by the way, to the people who say, oh, they don't exist. Well, they have an address. They're not even a group. They have merch. Yeah,
Didn't
exactly.
Trump just sign an executive order about labeling them a terrorist group?
Indeed. And he then followed up a few days later instructing all branches of government under the executive to go after their funding sources and their organization structure, which they have. There are leaders. There's a hierarchy, and I point out even lobsters have hierarchy. Mm-hmm. The ADL ran cover for them saying they're a leaderless, decentralized network. That is not correct. It's fair to say that there are organized factions. They fly the same flag and they coordinate with each other, but that does not mean leaderless. That's a lie.
Gentlemen.
To defend them.
It seems like the president just one day going, and they're a terrorist organization. Now everyone go get them. That's a little.
That's not what's happening, though.
Hit the brakes, boy.
Okay, let me ask you some questions. But I'm glad you asked this because it is a challenge of our morals and our views that the people need to hear. Was Abraham Lincoln wrong to suspend habeas corpus?
No.
What's shaking, man? Wait a second. No. There we go. Here we go. Oh, whoa. Come on, man. Really? That's why I wasn't noticing the commercials. I wasn't clicking through. That's what the hell it was. Ooh. Old Schumer Boomer. Why would he spin that yarn? I don't
Open
understand.
the door, Mr. Speaker.
Hakeem
Open
Jeffries
the
is straight
doors
up
of Congress, Mr. Speaker.
Transgender congressmen are storming the Capitol trying to find Johnson.
We're barreling towards a shutdown. All my Democratic colleagues are here. I'm going to go search for my Republican colleagues. Republicans, y'all know there's a government shutdown.
What
Republicans,
is up with them?
anyone
What
here?
is this joke for? Oh, it's the
Mike
dude.
Johnson in here?
It's the dude.
Remember
doing it.
Shri, the 70-year-old Indian
What a
congressman that
weirdo.
tried to impeach Trump? Well, he just flew the
That
coop
dude is
and said
creepy.
the quiet part out loud.
Returning back to Detroit this morning
Returning back
after
to
the Republicans failed to show up in the U.S. House. We got to make sure Americans have the health care that they need. And if that means we got to shut this government down, so be it.
Wow, what the
Shri's going to be in
hell?
trouble with hips. Democrats
That's
aren't
a
supposed to
weird
admit
dude
they're the
right
ones
there,
shutting
man.
down the government. We all know they're shutting it down to give illegal
That's
aliens free
incredible.
health care, but they're not supposed to admit that either. But they did.
The amount
Wow.
of money that actually is going towards people who are undocumented is such a small portion of the Medicaid cuts or the Affordable Care Act, if at all.
They went from illegal aliens don't get free health care to, yeah, we're giving them free health care, but it just doesn't cost that much. CNN caught them red-handed. Watch.
They talk about the provisions, and it's right here, subtitle E, and this has to do with the repeal of health care. What you support does bring back funding for emergency Medicaid to hospitals, some of which does pay for undocumented immigrants. Why even include that in a bill knowing that they're going to seize right upon that?
Hakeem didn't answer the question.
I feel
but
bad
Maxine
for
did.
Hakeem, honestly.
No relation. She said Democrats are demanding health care for everybody. Trump and JD,
What a slick
they
way
aren't
for
going to
her
let
to
that
sidestep
slide.
that too.
There's a lot of emergency health care at hospitals that are provided to illegal aliens. That was funded by the federal government. The Biden administration gave mass parole to millions upon millions of illegal aliens, and then they simultaneously made those parolees eligible for health care benefits funded by taxpayers.
Biden was waving an amnesty wand and giving millions of illegals free health care. Illegals were going to the hospital to have babies, free. In California, they were able to get sex changes, free. Illegals use the hospital when they have the sniffles, all free. We got fleeced. So
Hey,
Trump closed the bank.
There is no doubt
A
about
Times
that.
poll says
We got fleeced hardcore by Biden in those 4 years. I want to say we got fleeced harder than America has ever been fleeced yet by any entity, by any group, by any country, anything. Like Joe Biden bent us over and gave it to us the hardest. I mean, like, that was, in money terms, could that even be fathomable, the amount of people that came over and came through unvetted? Like, if you were to put a dollar amount on that, if millions, 20 million people came in, golly, that would be, I would rather pay a $50 trillion debt than go through that again. Like, in a heartbeat, you know. So, like, I mean, we could have just fought, like, another forever war.
65% of the country thinks Democrats are delusional for shutting down the government for this. Schumer calls it fake news.
The question in that poll is biased. Biased. In the New York Times, but it's biased. If you turn the
He needs to just hang up the Spurs.
That's true. I don't always believe the New York Times.
Democrats are getting annihilated in the PR battle. The media won't lie for them, and they don't even know how to meme.
We're also dealing with the social media.
Oh my God.
Which we didn't do enough of,
way he
frankly,
talks about
in the past. And that was a mistake, and we're trying to rectify it.
Chuck has to save face with the base
Dude,
and show he can fight, or else he's going to get cooed. The Democrats are going through the
Cooed.
same growing
That's the new
pains that
word.
the Republicans went through 15 years ago
That's the new
with
word,
the Tea
isn't it?
Party
Cooed.
and then with the Freedom Caucus. Republicans got rid of Eric Cantor, Boehner, Kevin McCarthy. But the Democrat Party never let the beefs play out. They shut down Bernie. Nancy put AOC in timeout. And they
That's
stole
why
the
this
nomination from Biden. The Democrat establishment's on a collision course with its base. Now, these kinds of fights should be done in the primary, when voters decide the winners and losers. But when you do it in a shutdown, both factions lose. Trump's not caving. Not for illegal alien health care. The government will reopen. Sombreros or no sombreros, there will be no fiesta. But Schumer will always look like a wiener.
Want even more Fox News on
Good
YouTube?
Lord.
Become a Fox News Patriot today. Click join to find out how.
Pretty silly.
It's a finger-pointing palooza after the federal government shut down. Nearly every Senate Democrat voted against a Republican plan to open it back up, and now everyone says the other guy is to blame.
Democrats in Congress have officially shut down the United States government.
Democrats want to avert this crisis. But Republicans tried to bully us.
Chuck Schumer is listening to the far-left radicals in his own party.
Republican leadership is off playing make-believe in La La Land.
They prioritize taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal aliens over keeping the government open for American citizens.
They don't even have the guts to be on Capitol Hill and debate us face to face.
They have taken the American people hostage.
If the women were in charge, we'd have done this by now.
Oh, sexist! President Trump already squeezing Chuck Schumer's state. The White House freezing $18 billion in New York City infrastructure funding. And DJT is warning the Dems that the shutdown layoffs could be irreversible.
We can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible, that are bad for them and irreversible by them, like cutting vast numbers of people out, cutting things that they like, cutting programs that they like. When you shut it down, you have to do layoffs. So we'd be laying off a lot of people that are going to be very affected, and the Democrats, they're going to be Democrats.
You know,
amid the shutdown drama, 47's been trolling the hell out of Dem leaders, slapping sombreros on Hakeem's head, shoving Trump 2028 hats in their faces, serving up Diet Cokes,
for this shutdown
and showing off Biden's auto pen portrait. Watch
in
this.
GOP.
When he tried to hand you that Trump 2028 hat, what was your reaction?
Well, actually, he did not try to hand Leader Schumer and I the Trump 2028 hat. They just randomly appeared in the middle of the meeting on the desk. It was the strangest thing ever. And I just looked at
that's fucking
the hat, looked at J.D. Vance, who was seated to my left, and said, "Don't you got a problem with this?" And he said no comment.
Oh,
Poor
shit.
kids.
I heard him say that
It's not like they
before, and I
weren't
didn't get what he
trolling the
was talking
Republicans for the
about.
last 10 years by calling us Hitler and Nazi. They can't take a sombrero.
Clever.
Lighten up, champ. Okay.
Okay.
That was my monologue for today.
slick, though, of them to
Okay,
do
so
that,
these
get into
shutdowns
his
happen with
head
such
like that.
regularity. It seems like it's not about the participants, it's about the system itself, Dana. And you're a systems thinker.
It's like they're taking Miralax.
Yes, exactly. When the
that
government shuts down,
Scott
the
Jennings?
consequences are felt by the citizens and not the shutdowners.
So-
Shouldn't that be reversed?
Yes. Okay. So let's go back just a little ways. Trip down memory lane.
Mm-hmm.
In October of 1995, at the first government shutdown, that was my first day on the job on Capitol Hill working as a press secretary. Didn't know if I was essential or not. It was a big deal. It was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And it lasted a long time.
First
There were
one
headlines
ever.
everywhere. This is Newt Gingrich. This is actually Mark Penn, who a lot of people see on this program. He was advising Bill Clinton at the time. He said, "Let the Republicans do. We will win this." And they felt like they did, of course, going into that next midterm. So then you have a situation
It's always
where
the
it
other
happens
people's
over and over and over again. I have a friend down in Florida who's very involved in politics. He was out and about last night, so he asked everybody what they thought about the shutdown. Nobody knew what was happening.
Right.
Because what's happened is, over time, the shutdowns have become so anodyne that you're not going to miss your Social Security check. Everything is, did you like that word?
I'll have to look that up.
That's a great word.
Scott Jennings.
Everything
That's that
is
Italian guy.
pretty much working. You're not personally affected by it.
The White House becomes like Home Depot, where you could just walk around. I mean, not the White House, the government itself becomes like Home Depot. There's just nobody there to help you.
And if you're a conservative, you're thinking, great.
Yeah.
The government shut down. That means they're not going to be able to do anything. The other thing is, when the Democrats want to play chicken with President Trump, I mean, come on.
They
Who do they
never
think is
win.
going to win? He doesn't mind doing irreversible cuts.
No. Yeah.
Part of this is actually, it's bad for both sides. I think it's bad for the country. We should be able to do this in a reasonable way. But there's a woman, my last point is that Neera Tanden, she worked at the Obama and the Biden White House and also for Hillary Clinton.
Bozo.
She was attacking members of the media for pointing out that Democrats shut the government down, but they literally did.
They did.
There were 13 votes that they took, and then they decided at the last minute they didn't. Now the Democrats will have to decide how much do they care about Chuck Schumer's political future.
Right.
Three Democrats have already crossed over, and if the political pain for them gets much higher, then they could have more. But I do think this could go on a while.
I think they would be
talking about
stupid
this a
if
while.
they didn't cut
excellent, because you know this is my favorite
Favorite.
topic. Jesse, I love the seriousness with which CNN placed the trolling. It's almost as though they have forgotten that for decades they have mocked Republicans, they've ridiculed them, and now the shoe's on the other foot, and they're like, this isn't funny at all. Just stop.
CNN's asking Republicans to condemn a hat.
Yes.
Seriously.
It's just a hat Mexicans wear to keep the sun out of their eyes.
Why do they hate Mexican culture?
I don't see what's racist about putting a sombrero on anybody.
Yeah. Mexicans love sombreros.
Yeah, we wear cowboy hats, they wear sombreros.
Why does CNN hate Mexicans? That's a fair question.
Right. And the question
there is something about that
why is
Mexican-
Trump putting the sombrero on Hakeem's head? It's because Hakeem is shutting the
Democrats have
government
trouble
down
with it.
to give Mexicans health care. And so I don't understand, if they call us Nazi, we can't put a sombrero on you? I mean, they look really, really uptight. And Trump looks loose, he looks confident, and he has all the leverage because he doesn't need anything. He got everything in the big, beautiful bill. The Democrats need stuff. They want to give stuff away. And they decided to fight this out now, and it's really not the right time. Trump is going to just start doging everything. Their windmills, their stupid, bloated programs for two-spirited people. It's all coming down. You think Democrats are just going to sit around and run out the clock? You think Trump is going to cave and say, okay, let's give billions to illegal aliens so they can get sex changes? You know, illegal aliens can actually get government-funded sex changes in California.
That's insane.
That's what this is about. Biden paroled millions of people. He flew Venezuelans into the country and gave them access to health care. He said, if you are an asylum seeker, we're going to give you health care. And then in states like New York and California, you get it and the government funds it. And Trump's saying, no mas. That's all this is. And Schumer looks really dumb because the only reason he's doing this is to save face because his far left base wants action. And so he's going to give him a little action and then he's going to cave. And then what? Then what? I mean, AOC's already come out and said, hey, if you guys want to negotiate this, I'm your girl. How do you think that looks to Schumer? He's already losing power. Hakeem's getting clowned, and the stock market's up. They don't even care.
Well, Jesse makes some excellent points in there, but let me boil it down to this. And I think Jesse hit on it. Isn't this entire budget conflict a direct result of the border fiasco? And that you combined open borders with free stuff, and you have this massive opportunity cost on state and national budgets, and that's what we're seeing right now is a direct consequence of the abdication of your border responsibility. What say you, Miss Tarloff?
I say nay, no mas.
Is she a horse?
Not correct. The border crisis, which was a real crisis that I acknowledged here on the television, did not make the GOP go for all the provisions in the reconciliation bill and give massive amounts of tax cuts to billionaires and take away Medicaid coverage from the poorest Americans. They did that themselves, irrespective of whatever happened at the border. Yeah, they did do that.
Who?
Actually, yes, and to cite it again, just listen to Josh Hawley talk about it if you don't believe me. Jesse said they're doing this because they want to give illegals health care. That is not true. It is prohibited. 2 points that are important.
They've said that since
prohibited in New York, California.
It's in federal statutes. States are allowed to do whatever they want.
Where do they get the money?
No,
they get the money from the feds,
okay.
Jessica.
Right.
This is musical chairs.
It's semantics.
Then let's talk about the provision that they're trying to strike down from the big, beautiful bill. This section 71109.
Not that one.
That one in particular, which eliminated Medicaid coverage. They're trying to get this reinstated for groups that are here lawfully, including refugees, survivors of domestic violence, and trafficking victims. That's what the GOP, if you're seeing their tweets flying around, they're don't
show up on the border and say you were trafficked. You got in and you got free health care.
You don't have. They have protected status. That's what they're trying to reverse. But the point is, if you want to do a deal, if you actually care about people, which Mike Johnson reports,
we hate people.
but Mike Johnson is still pretending that he does. The ACA tax credits are the crux of all of this. And 21 million of the 24 people that benefit from those subsidies are in Trump states. So he should want to keep them happy.
Yeah, they'll do that around Christmas.
No, they won't.
Yeah, they will.
They won't. We've been asking them to do it for months, and they don't. They're lying again, saying, just open up the government and we'll let that go ahead. 114% is how much those premiums are going to go up.
It's your program. You guys set the date for it to eclipse, and then you guys juiced up the premiums for COVID-level spending. They just say they want to bring it back down to pre-COVID.
There's a reason that your bill has. Yes, of course.
They opened up our country like a buffet for the last 4 years. All the pigs have been at the trough. This is nothing more, to my mind, than Trump saying the fucking buffet is over. The trough is closed. Move along. That's what I voted for. And I've been waiting for this government shutdown or something like this to happen where he could go in with a hatchet.
All of these subsidies in, and like any entitlement, when you go to take it away, people have strokes. That's how everybody loses their mind.
Every time.
This was supposed to be temporary. They're just adhering to what the original deal is.
Absolutely.
We don't have a lot of time. Let me just say something real quick. First of all, birth tourism is a real thing. All right? They come here, they have the babies, they get prenatal care, then the kid's a citizen, that's it. China, there's entire industries devoted to that. It happens, Jessica. I've been here in New York City. You got to rush them to the hospital. I'm not going to say no. The woman's in labor. Oh, but she's here illegally and she's from wherever.
What do you do?
They're not going to say, go have your baby on the street. Of course they're going to take care of the person.
Absolutely.
We absorb those costs. Those costs do come from the federal government ultimately. Lastly, if you want to see where this stuff leads, just to make a macro point, I got to go back to Milton Friedman. You can't have open borders and a full safety net. You just can't have it. It's just a truism of life. And if you want to see where it goes, look at I'm going to say it again and I'm going to get tortured, the nut job archipelago of our cities, right? Johnson himself in Chicago.
That is what the deal is. You cannot have a wide open border saying we're open for business, guys, come on into the trough. And at the same time, you're pouring out tax dollars. You're just spewing tax dollars. It's not right, but and then when we go to claw it back, we get screaming and hollering and stuff, and it's like, who the fuck are y'all fooling? And who are you trying to fool with this business? Here we go. He just talked about Milton Friedman. This is a Milton Friedman Bill Buckley episode. This is like the all-time greatest. This is Milton Friedman laying out his.
Come to think of it,
his blueprint.
Somebody has to be the leading economist in the entire world.
For the first time.
The marvel is that Mr. Friedman is a conservative.
This is Milton Friedman's first time laying out modern monetary policy. This is his debut with the public eye. World-shattering.
The author of great and weighty works. His initial publication was fetchingly entitled Pigu's Standard for Determining Inelasticities. His latest and greatest work, in collaboration with Anna Schwartz, is a monetary history of the United States, a work of seminal influence, which is causing as much stir in the world of Keynesian economics as the Origin of Species caused in fundamentalist Christian circles. Mr. Friedman is well known in the political community on account of several arresting contentions. One of them is that poor people tend to be hurt by existing welfare programs. Another is that we should altogether abandon such reliance as we now have on gold. A third is that we should institute a negative income tax, and still again, four, that we should abandon the progressive feature of the existing income tax. I should like to begin by asking Mr. Friedman whether, in his view, the technical competence of Keynesian economists is now being challenged by his researchers?
I'm not sure how to answer that question. The problem is that the distinction needs to be drawn between the competence of the economists and the correctness of their analysis. I would not want to say for a moment that those economists who regard themselves as Keynesians are in any technical sense less competent than those who regard themselves otherwise. On the other hand, there's no doubt whatsoever that what now would be held and believed by people who call themselves Keynesian economists is very different from what these same people would have believed 10 or 15 years ago. The label may stay the same, but the contents designated by that label have gradually been changing.
Well, would you go so far as to say that your researchers and the researchers of other economists are such as to have rendered indefensible certain of the conclusions which were embraced almost dogmatically, say, 15 years ago?
Oh, there's no doubt about that whatsoever. I don't want to take the credit for my researchers, but there's no doubt about the fact that there is no economist today, or hardly an economist today, who would hold the same views that a large fraction of the economic fraternity held in 1945, 1948. For example, to take a particular case where the revolution has been most extreme, as of 1945, just after World War II, the great bulk of economists would have argued that money did not matter in any important sense. And by money here, I mean the quantity of money, not income, but the quantity of money. There's hardly an economist today who would argue that way. If you want to see how radical the change has been, you can do so most easily by comparing principles textbooks that were issued just after World War II and those that are coming out now, even I may say, when they are different editions of a
Samuelson, for instance,
yes, you compare the first edition of Paul Samuelson's Principles with the seventh, which is just out. You will find that in the first edition, there's a very small section on money. Policy has to do with what happens to the quantity of money. And by the quantity of money, I mean the number of dollars you and I carry in our pockets, or the number of dollars there is to the credit of people at banks. Currency and deposits is what people ordinarily refer to by the quantity of money.
And you're in favor of increasing the amount of money generally available by a fixed rate?
Yes, well, that's true. That's right. Now,
this might be a little dry.
I think that there is a problem of fiscal versus monetary policy. But I think there is another issue which is just as important, which is with respect either to fiscal or monetary policy. Do you try to follow a steady course? Or do you try in the
Here we go.
Sure. And Iowa. These criticisms are difficult to confute objectively. If Ronald Reagan were to enter the 1980 Olympics and win the 100-yard dash, there are those who would say that that was the last diffusion of a discharging battery. If tomorrow he were to write a sequel to Machiavelli's The Prince, there are those who would say that here finally is proof that Ronald Reagan's mind is rooted in the Renaissance. If tomorrow he announced that in the next 6 weeks he would visit every town and hamlet in New Hampshire, there are those who would find here concrete evidence that Governor Reagan has finally recognized that he is not the front runner. Accordingly, I propose to spend the hour discussing not so much the forthcoming campaign, but rather how would President Reagan
interfering where they haven't been invited in.
Do I understand you to say that the actual role attempted by, say, President Johnson during the riots of his administration might very easily have exacerbated the situation rather than helped to modify it?
Well, when I was governor of California, it was in the roaring 60s, when the campuses were in ferment and we were talking about long hot summers, and there would be more cities burned and more rioting. Those were handled, in the first place, by local authorities, even in war-torn Berkeley, up to and including the county officials, the sheriffs, and so forth. Even the state was not involved until the local authorities, as they did one day, calling from the university president's office, told me as governor that they could no longer assure the safety of the people of Berkeley, and they asked for the National Guard, and I immediately sent the National Guard in. I might do, in those cases, what the President of the United States did at that time with me. He did call me informally, having heard of the troubles we were having, and say, if at any time it becomes necessary or you feel it could be of help to have troops at the federal level, rest assured they'll be provided. But local law enforcement, and law enforcement is pretty much local. It isn't a federal problem to the extent of coming in because you hear there's been a crime committed in some city. And so here I understood my duty as governor that I did not send in the National Guard, nor should I, until I am asked by local authorities.
Well, would you would you encourage anyone at the federal level to inquire into the causes of the Detroit riot in case it proves that they might become endemic?
Ah, yes. Now that's a different thing. The cause of the riot, because in my view, the federal government has an obligation to enforce the Constitution, which means to protect the constitutional rights of all citizens.
Yes, yes.
If the cause of the riot was the denial of constitutional rights to any group of citizens, I believe that if need be, the federal government should protect those rights of even the least individual among us at the point of bayonet, if necessary.
That's my dude right there.
And what if it was not a denial of constitutional
Is this not absolute just based? Was that just not based as shit right there to hear that?
Formulated in the Constitution.
Good.
Would you feel a collective sense of responsibility that focuses in the White House?
I think Trump should just swing away.
I think that you would keep in touch. I think that you would, at all times, make it evident to the local authorities that you stood by, ready to help. But until they felt the need for that kind of help, I think it would be undue interference of the federal government to move in.
President Reagan, Tito is dead. The pro-Soviet faction in Yugoslavia has urged the Soviet Union, citing the Brezhnev Doctrine, to send its armies to restore order. And you are advised that, in fact, Soviet columns are on their way south.
Well, I would hope that by that time, the United States would have given enough signals to the Soviet Union, beginning with, say, Afghanistan, such as an American presence now in the Middle East, an American presence in the Indian Ocean and in the Persian Gulf area, the restoration of arms sales to Pakistan, and an American presence even there, because we have a treaty with Pakistan, that the Soviet Union would have received enough signals that a move of the kind you just described would run the very serious risk of a direct confrontation with the United States. And I don't think the Soviet Union wants a direct confrontation with the United States.
Is it your opinion that those historians are correct who say that when the Soviet Union marched into Czechoslovakia, it was President Johnson who kept them from going into Romania by saying that they should look out lest they loose the hounds of war?
I did not. This is the first time I've heard that. I did not know that he had said that. But I think this is what we're talking about. The goal is world peace. And therefore, the United States cannot recklessly put itself in a position where the confrontation does take place. But I think the United States must make it plain to the Soviet Union, which it has not done for the 3 years of this administration, should make it plain that they can run that risk of having such a confrontation if they continue with their imperialism and with this kind of expansion. To me, the reason I use the Afghanistan example right now, the danger and the thing that we should be very...
It's so easy to forget that the troubles that we see today, whatever events, whatever forces we come up against, there has most certainly been another period in time when those same events, those same pressures, that same environment, or at least one that's similar enough to make a comparison, a direct comparison with. And it's just nice to hear other politicians from another time speak on it.
Conscious of is that outside of their own circle of satellites, this is the first time the Soviet Union has used its own forces, its own troops. And it seems to me it's kind of showing off that they think they are or have reached a level of strength vis-a-vis the United States in which they can become a little more reckless than they've been. Always before it's been with proxy troops, or it's been stirring up, fomenting an uprising, a revolution within the country, and then covertly aiding that revolution to take over. This time it is Soviet troops riding in motorized equipment that was built in the Kama River truck plant, which was built with American know-how and run by American computers. We provided that on the pledge that the Soviet Union would never make the product of that track available, of that plant factory available for military purposes. And they have violated that. And someplace along the line, I know the president has said he's just discovered that the Soviet Union can't be trusted. That's something that a great many people would have been happy to tell him any time over the last several
What a
years.
joke.
Well, you will remember that your predecessor, President Carter, when he was asked in his debate with Jerry Ford whether we would move to defend Yugoslavia, said rather specifically that we would not. Would you make so categorical a declaration in respect to Yugoslavia?
That's exactly what Joe Biden did.
A categorical declaration that we would not?
Yeah.
I think one of the foolish things we've done going clear back to the Vietnamese
we would
War
not do it.
is telling potential enemies the things we would not do. For example, when President Johnson repeated over and over again that, of course, we would never use nuclear weapons there. I don't think we should have used nuclear weapons there. But I think the North Vietnamese should have gone to sleep every night worrying about whether we would.
Yeah.
We shouldn't tell them the things that we wouldn't do.
So therefore, if I understand, your position is that you would so order the foreign policy as to make it an impermissible risk of the Soviet Union to enter Yugoslavia.
You put it better than I could.
Exactly.
Representative Kemp
that's the
of New
whole
York
point
State
of deterrence.
proposes that all future United States bonds be issued on a guaranteed purchasing power basis. What is your reaction, Mr. President?
That sure would make the government honest for a change. You mean, of course, that the bonds that today, we even use patriotism to induce people to buy bonds. And yet the federal government knows that as long as we maintain this inflation rate, they are going to pay the people back with dollars that even plus the interest will not buy as much as the dollars that people are investing in those bonds to begin.
And then tax the interest.
And then tax the interest. And it is dishonest. And of course the answer is to, since government causes inflation, government's the only one that can stop inflation. And government should be doing that, and it hasn't. But yes, that sure would give the government something to think about. In other words, if it had to index and give back to the people dollars that have the same purchasing power as the dollars that they had invested.
Well, that is a very specific proposal that has been made by Milton Friedman, and he cites experiments with it in Canada and in some of the Scandinavian countries. The notion is not to sell this as an anti-inflationary weapon because it won't necessarily control inflation, but at least it will keep the government from defrauding the people.
That's right.
It would also hugely lower the interest rate, obviously, because if you were going to get your inflation back, you'd be disposed to buy bonds at a lesser carrying cost. The carrying cost would be implicit in the sense that the government would have to bear.
What's really sad is that this was on PBS. It was broadcast to everyone in the country, and this was just on TV. Like, this is a really elevated conversation. Like a 5-year-old could not understand what they were talking about. This isn't just, and even a high school dropout would have trouble with this, most likely, if not complete misunderstanding.
Burden of its own inflation. Are you favorably disposed to such a reordering?
Well, yes, because I've often thought, Bill, that last year, the American people reported for capital gains, for tax purposes, that they had made profits, capital gains, of $4.5 billion. An economic study has revealed that those capital gains, if they were computed in constant dollars, actually represented not $4.5 billion profit, but a $1 billion loss. Now, by what right does the government make you pay a tax on a loss? If we're to have a capital gains tax, I think that tax should be computed in constant dollars. You shouldn't have to pay a tax on inflation.
So, in brief, you would not veto any act by Congress that authorized the issuance of guaranteed purchasing power bonds?
No. I'd laugh all the time I was signing it.
Mr. President, the OPEC powers announced yesterday afternoon that the basic price of a barrel of crude oil will be $50. What is your reaction to that announcement, and what do you propose to recommend?
Well, I've been recommending for a long time that the only way we're going to make ourselves independent of OPEC oil is not by telling the people to drive less or keeping the farmers from getting enough diesel fuel to run their tractors and plant their fields. It is
Man, I haven't seen this one in a little while. Golly. What the fuck? Ugh. The ant-heap. The masses, like cattle. Nothing. It's ridiculous. I don't even get that joke, but it's I enjoyed it. You know, it seems pretty obvious to me that the left that we fight today, you know, the left, you know, the liberals, they were fighting them back then. You can see it plain as day by the way he's talking. They were fighting the same exact people, the same exact movement. They were just fighting a different iteration for a different era. And it strikes me that they were going through a struggle like we are. Like Ronald Reagan personally must have been politically aware whilst they were going through a political struggle. You know, because when he spoke those words about how freedom is only one generation away from us losing it, and that every generation has to reaffirm and fight for it. That, I mean, he was an old guy when he said that. He must have seen it at least once, probably twice, where these greedy, crooked Democrats, they start trying to add to the bureaucracy. How much more can we squeeze out of these people? They start getting really almost dehumanizing the way that they deal with people. They deal with them as cattle or sheep to be sheared, and it's disgusting. It's not, and I think that's why Charlie Kirk was such a refreshing guy, because you got the feeling it was the exact opposite with him, that he was one of us, and he just wanted to take us to where he thought things would be better. It wasn't about getting something from us. It wasn't about milking us for anything. It was about going to a better place with him. Him, you know, he obviously he could see potential and had a vision for what he thought could be done. And thank God for guys like him, guys like Thomas Jefferson. I mean, those are the people that actually that bring us all the good things that we have as humans, but certainly that have brought us the best parts of America, you know, without a doubt. That's for sure. Yeah. Where is that one? Oh, yeah.
There are those who say that Mrs. Wallace is governor only in the ritual sense, that it is her husband who exercises effective power. But Mr. Wallace's standing in Alabama is a matter of diminishing national interest. It is his standing outside Alabama, outside the South, and took a law degree from the University of Alabama in 1942. He served in the legislature after the war, having done a stint as public prosecutor.
Without a doubt.
Then in 1958, he ran against John Patterson for governor and lost. He is quoted as having said at the post-mortem that he would never again be out-segged in a political contest. That is to say that he would not permit his opponent ever again to take a position more pronounced than his own in favor of racial segregation.
I believe he fought in World War II.
Now that Mr. Wallace is running for national
4
attention,
governor
he denies ever
terms,
having had
2
any
through
animus
his wife,
against
2
the Negro.
through
He now
himself.
takes, watch and see, positions on public policy which are generally thought of as merely conservative. I should like to begin by asking Mr.
And
Wallace
he ran as
to
like a
explain how come
populist.
it is
Neither party would allow
that a
him.
poll of 200 prominent conservatives recently conducted by the weekly journal Human Events reveals what the editors call a, quote, surprising animosity towards Mr. Wallace. Why should that be?
Well, first, I want to comment on your opening statement there, in which you said I was quoted as having said in 1958, after I was defeated, that I was out-segged.
This is my guy right here, bro.
There's no such expression as seg in the vocabulary of Southerners.
This dude is a scrapper.
I never heard of the word seg or segged until it was written in the Time magazine, which they are real good at rewriting what is written on the local scene. In fact, recently they wrote, I think, that I made a sucking sound on my teeth when I ate, because they wrote the story that the writer had eaten with me. So when they then sent it to New York, they rewrote it. They rewrote.
Remember how they did
Newsweek
DeSantis like that shit?
Recently, when the writer said he ate lunch with Governor Wallace, then they in New York rewrote the story and said Governor Wallace picked his teeth with a dirty toothpick.
What the
You see,
fuck?
they get in their mind, well, we ate
Bro.
lunch with him. What did he do at lunch? Well, he picked his teeth with a dirty toothpick.
Why
That
this
I've never made
animosity?
that expression, and never made any such statement. I was just as strong for states' rights and local government in '58 as Mr. Patterson. Mr. Patterson won the race because his father had been assassinated after he was elected Attorney General. And there was much sympathy for him, but we ran a good race. But I never made any such, when Time magazine writes that, they told an unmitigated falsehood. I never made any such statement, and now about
No,
you...
you're now taking the position that it's impossible to out-seg you, even in 1958.
Oh, I don't know about the matter of out-segged. I've never run on a segregation platform throughout the country. I've never said that you should have segregation of the school system or any other. In fact, we don't have segregation in Alabama. We've had more mixing and mingling among people of both races in Alabama than they've had in New York State, where you come from.
No, wait a minute.
Oh, yes, that's
No,
correct.
no, wait a minute.
All you got to do is go down to Alabama and see. We haven't had any problems that, in Alabama
Governor,
that exist in you. But let me answer your question now.
Yeah,
I gotta
that's a good
answer your
idea.
question. In the first place, I care nothing about what kind of school system you have in New York or Missouri.
Well, you should.
Alabama.
You're an American.
Well,
why don't you?
I care in the sense that I have confidence in local people. The people of Missouri can run their school system without somebody in Washington laying down the guidelines. That's all I'm saying.
Governor, I should direct your attention first to Mr. Buckley's question,
Yes, sir, all right, sir.
about why these
And I'll
conservatives are
direct
against
that.
you, and then
Well,
bring
when-
in these other explanations.
Mr. Buckley said that 200 prominent conservatives. That's typical of those who write in magazines. 200. Who were these prominent conservatives? I can go out here to the...
Mr. Buckley, did the magazine list the conservatives?
No, it didn't. But suppose Governor Wallace names a prominent conservative outside the South who's in favor of him.
Well, 107,283 folks signed the
They're not that
petition
many
for me.
prominent people.
Those were steel workers. Those were...
No. Mr. Wallace, a prominent conservative in the sense of someone who is nationally known
Well, Mr.
Buckley, as a conservative,
I run my politics like I did in Alabama. I never went to the county courthouses to see the county governing body. I just went to the people. Now, when you say you put too much credit on the support and influence that some fella in a magazine, a newspaper, or somebody on a college campus that might be conservative, or some minister who may be conservative, but actually I go out to the masses of the people with the message that I have,
Governor,
and I don't know any prominent conservative. In the first place, we have overestimated what the editor of a magazine can do in the conservative field.
I think you're directing your attention to why Mr. Buckley's question is irrelevant.
I don't know why the so-called prominent conservatives at human events said they were not for me.
Governor, we try to have responsive answers. Perhaps Mr. Buckley's question was out of order. Is there any? Do you know of any?
I don't know who the prominent conservatives are. Who are they?
Well,
name them.
Your point is that it doesn't make any difference.
It doesn't make any difference to me whether some prominent conservative is not for me. The fact
is there
that
anyone who is
the
for
fact that 70% of the people last night on a poll on a television station in St. Louis said they would support me. The fact that I won the television poll on WIIC in Pittsburgh the other day and defeated Johnson, Kennedy, and Reagan by almost 3 to 1.
And they might have given more votes to Perón than they did to you, right?
Well, maybe so. That's right.
We're not talking about how popular.
Well, those are smart. That's a real.
Why is it that?
That's a real smart answer to a fact that I won a poll. Is that Perón might have got more votes? That's right.
We know that he got many more votes.
Mr. Buckley, why is it?
You got in Alabama.
Why is it that? Why is it the conservative?
I got the reason why is I got more in Alabama than you got in New York too.
Certainly, I don't claim to be popular in New York. I'm a conservative.
See if we can all talk separately.
Well, just all the conservatives are against me. All the conservative leaders are against me. You say?
You've made
let
the point
them be against me. What difference does it make?
Governor, if I could interrupt a moment, you've made the point that you don't care about the prominent conservatives. Mr. Buckley, I think, might say why
I didn't say that I didn't care about the support of the conservatives.
Well, it's relatively unimportant.
Why don't you let me talk on this program? After all, I was
too much.
Well, I would know. I was
supposed to have equal time, Governor.
Oh, this is your program. You own it every week, aren't you?
Mr. Buckley, why don't you tell us why?
I thought you invited me to get my opinion. You own here every week. This is your show.
In addition to a number of other things.
Well, why is it, Mr. Buckley? Why is it that prominent conservatives are important? Why did you think that was an intelligent question?
I think it's an intelligent question for this reason. I think that Mr. Wallace is trying to persuade a lot of people that he should appeal to them, whereas I think that people who have given their life to studying the problems of America in a conservative framework find that Mr. Wallace is not as completely convincing as he would appear on the basis of, say, a particular television show.
Gatekeepers.
And the reason why is that they find that his background is that of a New Dealer, a person who is intensely concerned to multiply the functions of the state, a person who is extremely evasive on the subject of segregation and the race issue, a person who has a gift.
Since you said that, since you said that,
Buckley, I think you've gotten
you wait just a minute and
you've gotten into some matters that really weren't relevant. So I think we should give Governor Wallace a chance to reply to.
Well, really, I thought I was supposed to. You wanted my opinion, but when you get on this show, the man who puts on the show wants to do all the talking.
No.
Oh shit, man! This guy's
made
a
a statement
card
here that in Alabama. I am for things that you don't think are exactly right. Name one thing in Alabama that I have supported on the governmental level that you are against.
Well, it seems to me that your if I may say so, fanatical concern for using public money for certain functions that might otherwise. Well, for instance, you want to take care of the hospitalization. You want to take care of old people. You want to take care of the poor.
Are you against caring for the poor?
I had a feeling that you would answer that way.
Are you against
I hate the poor. I'm for shooting them. That's what I thought. No, my point is that this is a free enterprise country, and that we have a tradition here of private philanthropy, of philanthropy conducted by private people, and under programs that haven't required the mobilization of the machinery of the state, whether at the federal or at the local level. But under the circumstances, the whole tradition of your kind of Democrat is one of enormous enthusiasm for federal handouts in
May
your
I
state.
answer that?
Yes.
Mr.
Buckley, I think you've had enough time. Let Governor Wallace.
In the first place, in Alabama, we have the highest old age pensions for destitute in our state that we find in most any southern state. That is, for people, the average age is 70 years of age. 3% of them are over 90. They're destitute. They're not people who have incomes. I'm for that myself.
You're for what?
For caring for destitute, average age of 70 years old,
it's a
and
question whether it has to
3%
be
over
done
90.
by the government.
Oh, well, it has to be in this instance done by the government.
Why?
For the simple reason
Why
that
can't it be done by their children?
It must be said that Wallace had some rhetorical skill. The dude could tangle.
The country. It's not that children don't take care of their parents. We have many elderly people in our state and in every state who need help. Who have reached the age of 70, the average in Alabama drawing old age pension. So let me say this, that there's no use, we're not going to reconcile our differences there. I am for looking after destitute elderly people. I am for yes, I'm for that. I'm not against that at all. So if conservatism is against looking after the elderly who are destitute, I might say that no conservative in this country who comes out against looking after destitute elderly people ought to be elected to anything. So I'm for that. Second, we provided more money in our state for the mentally ill, the blind, and the tubercular, and the disabled at any time in our history.
Now, Mr.
That's
Buckley,
a humanitarian program.
Mr. Buckley,
Now,
you regard that as non-conservative, Mr. Buckley? You should.
I regard it, Mr. Chairman, as non-conservative automatically to
Who
assume.
is this chairman we got here?
Automatically to assume. He's a very distinguished lawyer, Governor.
Trying to provide
he's
equal
also
time.
invited. Yeah.
I didn't know you supposed to require equal time.
non-
I thought you had me on here to hear.
We have to interrupt now. We will be back in a moment.
Continue to answer the question.
The
which
chairman
you've
is
made
in
a
charge
charge.
of this program.
Governor, I'll assure you of equal
You've
time.
made a charge against me that.
No, I haven't made it.
He made a charge.
I'm simply dividing
And he said
equal
we
time,
get
Governor.
federal handouts. Now I want to talk about that. Yes, we get
No,
federal.
no. First of all, we're going to complete the other point.
Let's complete. Mr. Governor Wallace went on from the elderly people
No,
to the mentally ill. Now, what is your attitude
your
on that?
question is it anti-conservative for the state to undertake these functions? My answer to that is, it is not anti-conservative for the state to undertake those functions if those functions have not been satisfactorily undertaken by private associations, the so-called third sector. And it seems to me that Governor Wallace has gone instinctively to Montgomery for state action of this kind before exploring adequately substitute ways.
Well, how do you know? How do you know?
Explored?
Yes, we've explored all sectors, I suppose, of the Department of Public Welfare in our state. We even had a Dependents Act in our state that required you to jail people if they didn't care for their parents. Well, we found that most of these people, you see, the majority of these folks who are drawing elderly assistance are Negro. And we are proud that we are helping the elderly, destitute Negro citizens of our state. But we found that many of their sons were in Detroit and were in Chicago and couldn't be located. So we had a law that required them to support their children, and if they didn't support them, they were cut off.
Cut off from what?
Cut off from the old age pension, destitute, the old age pension that was being paid to these destitute people. But then we found that even though a son of a destitute elderly person would not pay living in Detroit or Chicago, when we cut the elderly person off, we caused them to suffer. And so we just said, well, just because we can't get the children in Detroit and Chicago.
You know, I remember when I was younger, the way I felt about welfare is kind of the way I felt about anybody begging or whatever. You know, I really didn't have any sympathy for it. But as I've gotten older, you know, you realize things they're not that black and white. Life isn't that black and white. And there are people that fall through the cracks and whatnot. And it's videos stuff like this that reminds me that stuff does happen and did happen. You know, like the example he's giving here, where they had the Detroit auto boom, which pulled all kinds of. That's why there's such a large black population in Milwaukee, in Detroit, in Chicago. It was all these Southern blacks that were still here since slavery, move up north to go where the money is. And they leave all their parents behind, and leave their parents in destitution. And that left, you know, in that time, you know, your grandparents your parents lived with you, and you took care of them till they died. At that time, you know, the boomers were just kids, but you know, they had this big population of destitute, disabled, elderly people, and. You know, thank God we live in such a great country where those people aren't just like euthanized like animals or something, where the public just, you know, kind of grits its teeth and keeps moving. You know, it is what it is. It's like the cost of doing business, you know, do unto others and such.
In St. Louis, to help the elderly person, we're not going to let them starve. So we explored that sector. So I don't think there's any, the argument is that you don't think the state should help.
Let's get Mr. Buckley's reply to that. Do you think that's anti-conservative? Governor Wallace says they tried to get the children to support their parents, and as I understand, what he says, it was only when they wouldn't support the parents that then the state intervened.
In fact, if there was a vigorous search for substitutes, then quite rightly it falls to the political function to take something on this. But I think it's also true that we know from any knowledge of history of the South during the Roosevelt years and afterward that there has been a considerable solidarity between the South and the New Deal and the Fair Deal with its penchant for increasing federal participation.
You agree with that, Governor?
He was enthusiastic for Kennedy in 1956.
I wasn't enthusiastic, but I supported Mr. Kennedy, yes.
Oh, all right, you supported him unenthusiastically. We'll make these distinctions.
You what?
You supported him unenthusiastically.
I voted for Mr. Kennedy,
yeah,
yes.
That's
I
right.
never denied that.
Well, it seems to me that therefore this situates you.
Mr. Nixon doesn't...
You know, I just like the fact that even Buckley conceded in the end that if other options are exhausted, that yes, it falls on the state. And I hate how modern or conservatives, they try to pretend that there is no place for the state. When all the other options fail, then it does fall on the state. You know, it is their responsibility to take care of a destitute elderly class. And yeah, we would prefer private entities take care of that. We would prefer, you know, a lot of things, but sometimes, and we'd prefer not to give the government more power or have it spend more. But in the end, are we just going to let old people starve? No. And I kind of bothers me how the modern, like, conservatives, they seem intractable on things. And
it's hard to talk with you folks all doing all the talking when you invited me here to express my opinion, because I knew this is the way this program would be in the first place. Second, that people of the South, after the war between the states, didn't have any Lend-Lease or Marshall Aid or foreign aid programs. We had 10 years of vengeance and 10 years of occupation. We had the carpetbaggers. We had the scalawags. The state of Alabama just recently, about 10 years ago, finally paid off all the indebtedness that was shackled on us by even carpetbag legislatures in 1868 and 69 and 1870. We had 5 generations of people who didn't go to school because there were no schools for black or white. All they could do was eke something out of the ground to eat. We had freight rate discriminations placed on the backs of the South. And if you shipped something from Birmingham all the way to New York City until 1950 till we finally got that removed, and since that time the South is beginning to move forward even above the national average. If you bought a piece of steel, if you bought this watch, can I answer?
Sure, go ahead.
All right,
Take the watch.
You have no objection,
No,
all right?
no, and look at the legitimate exhibit.
If you manufactured this watch in Montgomery, Alabama, and you shipped this watch to New York over a rail line, you paid anywhere from 45% to twice as much to ship it to New York as you did to turn around and ship it back across the Mason and Dixon line to Montgomery, Alabama, with the same rail crew over the same rail line. Up until 1950, if you bought a piece of steel in Birmingham, Alabama.
Is that not the epitome of injustice? Like all this pearl clutching over tariffs and other countries, when just less than a century ago, the North was still bending the South over and no Vaseline, just raw dogging it. 45% shipping? That's insane, man. What the advantage that the North had for all those years. And the funny thing is it's the exact opposite now. They're at a total disadvantage. They're being crushed. And you know what? I would imagine the South, it doesn't have all those regulations because the South could hardly compete with the North as it is. So, you know, I would imagine that those state governments were in a posture where they were taxing a lot less and interfering a lot less than up north, because when it's booming, these liberals, they turn into vultures. When there's an auto boom or something, with the unions and the politicians, all they see is a cash cow. They just see sheep to be sheared. They see money changing hands, and why is their beak not being wet? So they put these union states where you have to join a union if you want to work for UPS or something. And my family lives in Michigan. They pay a ridiculous state income tax. I mean, it's like that in every one of those states, every one of those Rust Belt states. And because they boomed at one point, and we all know politicians are crooks, and they can't do in the private sector. They go to the public sector and thieve from the people that bullied them, or the people that are making all the money. It's kind of I feel like politicians, they're kind of like the lowest form of human life. I mean, like ambulance chaser level, for the most part. And like that's just a good example of it. And the South, we're doing so good now because we're not saddled with all that horseshit bureaucratic red tape. People can come run a business down here. They can come start a business and keep their money. They don't get robbed by the state before they even, the state taking 15% of their money.
You shipped it to Montgomery, Alabama. You paid the freight rate from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Montgomery.
Let's get Mr. Buckley's answer to your proposition. Mr. Buckley, he's making the point that the South, at the opening of the New Deal, was in a position of economic inferiority, and that is the reason why they went along with the New Deal. What is your response to that?
Well, my response to that is that, of course, Northerners are likely to take the position, some of them, of course, did, during Reconstruction.
New York went for Mr. Roosevelt, too,
during Reconstruction, it was the South that caused a civil war that resulted in 1 million deaths.
Because
and,
I always wondered,
this program...
what was it that made bedfellows of those conservative, segregationist Democrats? Wallace, perfect example. What was the binding tie between them and bleeding heart liberals or progressives? Why would they be bedfellows? They're like diametrically opposed. I mean, really, they hated each other, truly. And now it makes perfect sense, and I didn't know that until just now, but they became bedfellows because the South had a jackboot on its neck, and Roosevelt, a Democrat, a Northern Democrat, was offering aid and relief. The South was under such a heavy jackboot of the North, they had no choice but to vote for Franklin Roosevelt. I mean, at the detriment of the rest of the country, they voted for those, the New Deal and Social Security and what have you. But why wouldn't they, out of desperation? Why wouldn't you do that? If you were being absolutely smothered by the North, I mean, I would have done the same thing. And now it makes sense why they were bedfellows, because I always thought it was the strangest thing, because they are, the ones, they were, conservative, segregationists, and honestly, I kind of see eye to eye with them somewhat. And then you had the bleeding heart liberals that were communists. They were just straight up communists. And somehow those people got together, and I guess it just made strange bedfellows. I never could figure it out.
When you say the South caused a civil war, you came here to talk about conservatism, and yet that's typical of you and your magazine. You come here, all you want to do is insult our part of the country.
We can't have.
I don't want to get into the argument who started a civil war. And when you make the statement that the South caused a civil war, then we could argue 2 hours on that.
Mr. Buckley was just.
I resent that. I resent him saying that, and so we're not even going to talk about it.
He's trolling the shit out of him right now.
If he can.
Well, he said that
the Southern support of the New Deal.
He's just trolling the guy.
Make a historical aside that I have 2 great-grandfathers who were killed on the southern side of the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
Now, the reason, what I'm trying to do is get away from this child's view of history that Governor Wallace is trying to press on us. It is true that there was a systematic exploitation of the South. It is true that it is probably the worst period of American history was our persecution of the South after the Civil War. But it is also
they had a
true
straight up jackboot
that
on their neck.
during the 1930s there was no reason for the South not to have schools, and indeed, of course, the South did have schools, contrary to the suggestion
Well, do you think
Governor
free
Wallace.
enterprise?
But it's
What a
also
cheap
true
shot.
that certain politicians grew up in the South and they lusted for participation in a type of government which is distinctively anti-conservative,
I don't
the type of
think
government
so.
of which Mr. Roosevelt, Mr. Kennedy, and Mr. Johnson are the forward. Then all of a sudden something happened. The consequences of that federalization.
But there.
I think he's wrong right there. Honestly, I do. I think he's wrong when he
suggestion
says
of Governor Wallace.
that,
But it's also
that they were lusting for big government. You know what? After hearing Wallace speak, I think there is something to that argument that the South having a jackboot on its neck, you know, when Roosevelt is offering government assistance, they said, hell yeah, our people are struggling. And nobody would argue that the South wasn't like a shithole. Like during the Depression, the whole country was was in rough shape. And the South was, people missing teeth, and they were in rough shape. So it stands to reason that if somebody throws them a life preserver, they're going to take the thing, you know. And it makes sense that that's how the Southern conservatives got wrapped up in super partisan politics, you know.
True that certain politicians grew up in the South and they lusted for participation in a type of government which is distinctively anti-conservative, the type of government of which Mr. Roosevelt, Mr. Kennedy, and Mr. Johnson are the forward. Then all of a sudden something happened. The consequences of that federalization also meant that they couldn't continue in their segregated ways, and that's when Governor Wallace was born as all of a sudden a conservative.
What's your comment on that? Now you speak, Governor Wallace, and answer that.
That was always
I was
the
not
issue.
even voting in the days that you were talking
That was the issue with the South, was they had segregation, and when Kennedy said, yo, you're going to unsegregate, they didn't have a choice because they were the lowest GDP states in the nation. They had no choice. They're getting more in tax rebates than they were paying in taxes. The federal government, the rest of the country was subsidizing them, so they were totally beholden to the federal government. But and at the same time, they wanted to buck the federal law, and it just doesn't work. But I was wondering, why would they make that deal with the devil? There's strictly this states' rights thing going on with the South. Since the Civil War, they started the Civil War over states' rights. Why would they give up those rights? And it stands to reason they just must have really been in bad shape and more or less forced to take on help from the federal government. And that makes more sense to me than them just lusting after big government, because they literally fought a war over big government. Really, the Civil War, it's government overreach. And I think I believe Wallace more. I think he's more sincere too, actually. I think the guy is legitimately more sincere. And, what's funny is he was a segregationist. Right now, like, it had just become taboo to be a Southern segregationist. Like, with his first couple of elections as governor, he ran straight up as a segregationist, no holds barred, made no bones about it. But by the time the late 60s rolled around, he found himself in a situation in the political waters where, he was drowning. That was a position that could no longer be held. So he immediately renounced it and became really touchy about it. As you can see, he just became super touchy about it, super defensive. And he actually renounced segregation in the 80s. Like, straight up, years later, apologized for it on national TV and everything. It's kind of wild. Because the guy was he wasn't in the KKK or something, but when he did that apology, he apologized for more than just the segregation. He apologized for being a bigot, basically, which, I guess that's growth. But at the same time, sometimes I think to myself, like, maybe those natural feelings he had, maybe there's those that he was right. Maybe just because the culture was able to twist this guy and finally get him to to capitulate and give in. But really, in the end, maybe he was right to have stuck it out and fought it out and been fighting the good fight. I mean, if you in futility, because the whole liberal machine, it's a juggernaut. But I mean, I identify with this guy a lot.
I didn't even vote in those elections, but when you say that because the people of the South voted for Mr. Roosevelt, that made them anti-conservative, well, New York voted for Mr. Roosevelt all 4 times.
New York is very anti-conservative.
Every state in the
Union.
Union.
It wasn't?
Well, the point is, you're aiming talking about the South. I can't answer for what people did 75, 100 years ago, or what they thought or what they did in New York in 4 elections during the times that Mr. Roosevelt ran. But every state in the Union voted for Mr. Roosevelt except Maine and Vermont in 1936, and nearly all of them voted for him in 1940. The state of New York voted 4 times. So New York then has a history from which you come of supporting movements the same as Alabama and the South.
But they didn't
did.
pose as conservatives. I don't know when last anybody from New York posed as a conservative, except me, and I got 13% of the vote.
we have got it. Let's get it from definitely from Governor Wallace.
He's just
whether
straight
he is
up not a conservative.
Or pretends to be a conservative.
Well, now let's get back.
He calls himself a populist.
Let's get back. Well,
exactly.
If you mean populist, if you mean the.
I'm digging this. I'm digging this. That's exactly what this guy is. He's a populist, and the way they use it as a fucking dirty word is horseshit. Populist literally is the Roman word for democracy. Populism. That is what that means. So when people say he's a populist like it's some dirty word, no, he's a fucking politician that listens to his constituents. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a good politician. I mean, I don't really care what his constituents base is, but if he listens to him, good on that guy, I would vote for him.
If you mean man of the people, yes, I'm a populist, if that's what you mean by it. I don't know what you mean by populist because you have many definitions of many things. But I'll say that insofar, let's get back to the old age pension. You're against Alabama's looking after the elderly, destitute citizens of the state.
Yeah, we proved that, haven't we?
I'm for it.
Governor, we're trying to get to the question of whether you regard yourself as a conservative.
Do
you attach that label to yourself?
What do you mean by conservative?
You give your own definition. You're speaking.
Conservative to me means that we should allow, on the governmental scene, to allow local people to try to determine policies of local democratic institutions.
How can they without the vote?
What really bothers me is right here. These guys are fellow travelers. They're brothers in arms, and they're fighting. Like, I wish I could go back in time and say, yo, you guys are on the same team. Put your guns down. You know, like, bro, seriously, you guys are on the same fucking team. Yeah, one of you is a country club Republican, and the other one's, you know, a self-made rough and tumble kind of the guy with the guns in the Looney Tunes, you know, a Yosemite Sam kind of a character, you know, rather cantankerous of a guy. But really, I mean, and the way that William Buckley, he's trying to purge this guy from the ranks because they don't want to be associated with him because, of course, this is Martin Luther King era. You know, they're trying to be the politically correct and get with the times, but it's such a shame, though, because these guys ultimately, if it was today, they would be fighting on the same team. And it's a fucking shame to see, you know, that these guys like tearing each other down when really they should be like joining forces and tearing the asshole on the other side down. It's awful, really. We've been fighting this shit for so long, and it's like, it feels like we haven't got
without what?
It's like Ernest Hemingway said, things happen really slow and then all at once. You know, that's just the way things go, I guess. I don't.
The vote, V-O-T-E. Well, what steps did you take to encourage the enfranchisement of the Negro back before the government got on your back?
All right, I'll be glad to tell you, I've always made speeches in my state in which I said anybody's entitled to vote regardless of their race or color. qualified under the laws of Alabama, and we had Negro citizens by the thousands who voted in 1958 when I first ran for governor, and I might say it in the runoff for governor, that they voted for me.
Is that because they didn't have the education you're talking about?
No, I didn't say that. They voted for me because they didn't have education. Well, you reflect on the Negro voters of Alabama if you want to, but I don't. They exercised their choice, and their choice was as good as the choice of anyone else. In 1962, 100,000 or more voted. In the election in which my wife participated, around 260,000 Negroes voted, and in the general election with two opponents in 1966, my wife received more Negro vote than either.
I mean, it's kind of crazy. His wife held 2 terms in the governor's mansion. This guy was in the Alabama governor's mansion for like nigh on 2 decades. I mean, it's 2 6-year terms. So actually, it's like I think it was 24 years. The dude was he was basically the governor of Alabama for half the 20th century. I mean, it's rather wild.
And over at Selma, Alabama, this is a matter of statistical record, and you can go check. One of the networks has already checked because I made the statement.
Well, then I don't have to.
Huh?
Governor, let's get Mr. Buckley's
response. My wife received over 11,000 votes in round numbers in Selma.
Governor, let's get Mr. Buckley's response to that. The governor says he's not a racist. This is established by the fact that the Negroes... Let's get Mr. Buckley's response.
Will you let me finish my statement?
I tell you, we don't have speeches. We have conversational discussion.
She got 2,000 votes for the combined total of 2 opponents.
You've made your point. Let's get Mr. Buckley.
Well, half the voters on that day were Negro voters.
We have to interrupt now. We will be back in a moment.
Why do you...
I think we get your point, Governor. Mr. Buckley, what have you got to say to that? The Negroes have voted for Governor Wallace.
What I have to say is...
do you think, is he right? Are his facts right? Or
I don't...
Are his conclusions right, or what?
Well, I can't answer, Mr. Chairman, as long as you keep elongating your question.
I don't want either one of you to question the facts in this case. Now, if
do you accept my answer, Mr. Chairman?
I can't hear your answer. What is your answer to that?
My answer is that it's
I've given you the facts.
My answer is that it's a clear part of the historical record, which I think nobody who isn't a cynic will dispute, that the South not only didn't encourage its Negroes to vote, but encouraged them not to vote. So much so that we actually got a piece of legislation which wrested from the states the right to make their own decisions concerning qualifications, because in the judgment of the majority of Congress they had been cynically made. Incidentally, I was out of sympathy with that particular measure and still am. But I think for anybody to try to persuade people that the South has encouraged its Negroes to vote...
Let's get Governor Wallace's answer.
And how smug. How smug he sounds saying that, for us to be paying for those federal overreaches today. I mean, really, what a smartass.
These riots occurred. They occur in the South. And
that wasn't Mr. Buckley's point. He says that the South...
Yeah, they didn't have the race riots. Those were up north.
Do you agree with that, or don't you?
No, I think they're basically out of
we've never had
sympathy
riots,
with
really,
franchisement of people who are not qualified under the laws of a particular state. In Alabama, people were not allowed to vote if they couldn't read or write or sign their name, and take a simple literacy test in which the answers to the test were right on the test itself. Of course, the news media, when they gave the questions that were asked, didn't give the fact that right below that little box were all the answers that you could read and get the answers.
Wow.
And that we gave this test to the 6th graders in Alabama, and 98.2% of all the 6th grade students in Alabama passed the literacy test that we gave for voting. Then the federal government comes along and passes a law that says that illiterates in 5 states can vote. But that same illiterate registered in Alabama who cannot sign his name moves to New York, he cannot vote. So an illiterate has more civil rights in Alabama than they do in New York.
How about that?
Wow.
Let's get Mr. Buckley's
Well, I think that the government of Alabama can only be understood in terms of a reflection of the literacy of its voters.
Fucking smartass, man.
But I've never been in favor of necessarily increasing the franchise. I've simply been against its being denied on the basis of...
It don't sound to me like they denied anything.
And once again, I'm not going to here try to
simple
substantiate the fact that the Negroes have not had the same
with the answers
in the South the white people have, because this would be a venture in redundancy. And
well, let me say this. You can sit here and reflect on the people of Alabama about the literacy of Alabama voters is with the governor of Alabama. But I want to tell you one thing, that I'm going to run for the presidency, possibly in '68. And I think that I have as much rapport with the voters as any of these so-called conservatives that you talk about.
Well, yes,
In fact,
but the question is, do they understand?
No, but
Mr.
you
Wallace?
reflected upon the literacy of the people of our state. That's true. We've had some illiteracy. Yeah. But the great epoch in American history has been the comeback of the people of our region after 25 or 30 years of retrenchment, 20 or 30 years of occupation, of 100 years of economic discriminations placed upon the shoulders of black and white alike in our region of the country. And so your reflection upon the people of our region, of course, is not well taken. No. Because the people of our region have come further with less than the people of any section of our country.
And we fight all the wars.
The fact that they've done so. And I think you're going to find that when I go throughout the country in 1968, this year, that you're going to find people from California to New York who are going to support our movement. And I think that you're going to find the brand of conservatism that you criticize in me is a brand of conservatism that's not electable. In fact, I am not a reactionary. I'm not against caring for the elderly, as you mentioned a moment ago. Yes. What else in Alabama now, since you base your record about being non-conservative in Alabama that you are against?
Well, this guy was so ahead of his time. So ahead of his time. He's like a modern MAGA.
That you had their impartial interests in mind in taking the various steps that you have taken, just as in my judgment...
Well, name one thing I've done now.
Well, just as in my judgment, in going to Maryland and Missouri.
Well, I misled them.
Yeah.
You see, it's easy for you to reflect on my integrity here because that's your stock in trade. You said I misled them, see,
yes,
but of course I didn't.
I think you have.
Because that's a supercilious, sanctimonious...
Let Mr. Buckley say how you misled them.
I think that if
you
the
think
Negro...
I wittingly misled them?
I think if the
misled them in what respect, Mr.
You think I wittingly
we know
misled
that you were very much concerned about elections. You've been peppering your conversation during the past half hour about this being electable and that not being electable.
You ran for an election,
but I wasn't elected.
Oh,
this is my badge of honor.
You're not an elected. In fact, not enough people believed in what you talked about to elect you.
Mr. Buckley, you've said the Governor Wallace misled the people of Alabama.
Yes.
At what respect? How?
Because in terms of the relationship of forces in America, Mr. Wallace is primarily distinguishable in virtue of his position on the race issue. Otherwise, there are practically no differences between his position and mine.
Exactly.
Governor Reagan's.
Dude, that's the point.
Governor Reagan, or so he expressed a while ago to some newspaper
Why the fuck
reporter.
are you crucifying this
dude? He's a namby-pamby conservative.
Now, I want to tell you that whoever told you that told you an unmitigated falsehood.
It was published and republished.
Well, Art, I've never made a statement about Governor Reagan at all. Well, and you say that I have a contempt for Governor Reagan. There's no, I have no contempt for Nixon, for Roosevelt, for Johnson, for Romney or Rockefeller, and I've never made a statement that reflected upon them personally. And anyone who says I said
I didn't mean that you had
said something that was not true.
Personally, their policy is presumed.
Mr. Buckley, Governor, Mr. Buckley says you're misunderstanding him. What would you clarify?
No, I'm not.
This was a statement made by Mr. Tom Anderson, who is a great enthusiast for Mr. Wallace, in the American Opinion magazine, and republished in National Review. And I have yet to hear either from Mr. Wallace or from any friend of Mr. Wallace to dispute the accuracy of it.
I think Mr. Anderson, if he thought I said that I reflected on him in any statement that I made publicly on the record, is certainly he made a mistake in that regard.
If Mr. Reagan was nominated, in that case, would you not run for president?
If he ran on the proper platform, I would not.
What is the proper?
The proper platform is to turn domestic institutions back to the people of the states on the domestic issue.
Yeah, help the people.
Listen, now let's talk about federal aid.
Yeah.
You mentioned a moment ago, yes, Alabama gets so-called federal aid, but you know as well as I know there's no such thing as federal aid. It comes out of the pockets of the taxpayers.
No, it depends on the state.
Well, it doesn't make any difference. It comes out of the
certain beneficiary states and certain...
Well, that may be true.
Yeah.
But we send foreign aid
more than they give.
We have to interrupt now. We will be back in a moment.
I like Bill Buckley,
send
but
aid
sometimes
to our own
he's
states.
wrong.
They won't attach many strings. Yes, we get federal aid because it's really taxpayers' aid. The federal government has never made a dime in its life, nor the state of Missouri or Alabama. or the state of New York.
You're telling me something I knew when I was 3 years old.
Did you? Well, I didn't know whether you knew that or not, and I wanted to. Well, I wanted to. I've never read any of your books, but I want to say this that. Well, let me answer. Will you do that, please, sir?
Will you do that?
You have made your
point.
Please?
No, I haven't made my point.
What is your point?
My point is that we continue to get federal aid, so-called, because we pay taxes also, and because 4 cents of the gas tax in Alabama goes to the federal government. And so we're not against the getting of the aid that comes from the pockets of taxpayers in the country that the states are entitled to. We are against the controls. Now, I hope the day will come in peacetime, especially, when we can lower federal taxes and let the states recoup themselves and use the money as they see fit without the strings attached on the federal level.
Mr. Buck, what do you think?
Or they may get block grants.
What do you think about attaching strings, as Governor Wallace says, to aid supplied to the states?
I've been against it since I was 16 years old, or whenever. I'm very much against it, but at the same time I recognize that there are always going to be strings. It's almost a metaphysical difficulty. Yeah. If you take money and send it to Mississippi or Alabama or Arizona, it's going to end up there with certain conditions. This is almost in the nature of the act. Now, Alabama pays federal taxes, true, but Alabama takes in many, many more dollars than
Well, where are your figures on that? You got them right there?
No, but I'll tell you what.
Well, what are they?
Mike, I'll consult
Well, you've made
Mike
a charge against Alabama.
I will
figure.
commune with the World Almanac and give you a figure that won't be more than 15% off.
Well, go get it.
My guess is that you take in at least 5 times as much from the federal government as you send out.
I make the statement that that's totally untrue. Now, that's not correct.
Well, suppose I give you
figures?
I happen to know the figures
Where
for
are your
Mississippi.
figures?
Exactly.
Well, Alabama's
Those
not
are 10 to
Mississippi.
1.
10 to 1.
That's why I
It's not 10 to 1 in Mississippi in the first place.
Yeah,
I'll say that's wrong.
Yeah, well, it's 10 to 1 as of the World Almanac a couple of years ago. In any
Well,
case,
you're just making a charge which you have no substantial proof here.
No, but I don't think you really want to dispute.
If Mississippi gets tenfold what they pay in, if they did, that's incredible. I mean, what other state is producing 10 times more? I mean, that's wild.
I don't know exactly. I've seen the figures, but it's not any 5 or 10 to 1. But if it is, the people of Alabama are citizens, and they are entitled to have their ability respected to determine policies of local institutions. The liberals in the country, they want to give foreign aid to nations without any strings attached. So we say, why can't you give the aid and let the goodness of the people in Alabama and Mississippi
how about that?
decide
we give
themselves?
aid to foreign countries without strings
Tell me
attached.
this
Why
guy-
should we
That's the most magnificently irrelevant statement I've ever heard.
Tell me you don't
because
love this guy.
Alabama is also.
Is this guy not making sense? They're laughing at him, but the dude makes sense. All these fucking liberals sending our money all over the world to other countries. How about they send it to the people that need it in Palestine and shit?
Presidential race that I'm tired of Alabama being treated as a province.
As a taxpayer, Governor, I don't think that a lot of Americans who are paying taxes into Alabama would necessarily adopt that position. But honestly, you're forcing me to sound like a liberal, which has never happened to me before in my entire life. I don't believe strings ought to be attached, but I do believe that Alabamans ought to be protected by the Constitution of the United States.
Well, they are protected.
Well, they have been inadequately
Well, in what respect aren't they
They
protected?
haven't been inadequately protected.
Governor, let's get Mr. Buckley's bill in particulars. In what respect aren't Alabamians protected by the Constitution?
They have not been protected. For instance, in Selma, Alabama, it seemed to me notorious that the rights of certain Negroes were not adequately protected by the sheriff down there.
Well, of course, that's totally untrue. And let me say this to you. My wife received the Negro vote in Selma. But up in New York City, who's responsible? Nobody was killed in Selma. 8 people got skin on the head, not enough to put on a postage stamp, and yet they killed 41 people in Detroit. They killed 51 in Los Angeles. So where has all the trouble erupted in our country?
I've
has
always
it been in
found this,
Selma? Has it been in Newark? Has it been in New York City? Has it been in Los Angeles? Been in Detroit? Been in New Haven, Connecticut?
I've always found this one of your most interesting points. It reminded me of the American capitalists, remember, who went to the Soviet Union in 1944 and came back glistening. The Soviet Union has no trouble with labor unions. Now, one of the reasons, of course, why there hasn't been as much crime in the South as there has been in the North, is because you have ways of dealing with crime which are to say the least, unusual. The Ku Klux Klan, for instance, seemed to be a major law enforcer during parts of
well,
Southern
of course,
history.
that's totally untrue. I'm not even going to answer these pseudo-intellectual...
That's ridiculous.
Why is that
Yes, you are. You're a pseudo-intellectual with a you don't like the people of Alabama.
I like the people of Alabama.
And all I'm going to say is that what you say is not true.
Yeah.
To pretend that the Ku Klux Klan ever had really that much sway, I mean, maybe, you know, they slowed laws up in legislation and stuff, and maybe caused some trouble terrorizing people, but, you know, this isn't an iron fist of autocracy or something. They were just a band of fat, bald white guys.
Succeed themselves. They opposed my wife for governor. They opposed everything I've ever done, and my wife carried their circulation area 4 and 38% to 1. 4.38% votes to 1.
But that doesn't make them right, does it?
Well, you always... The editor of the Montgomery Advertiser is one man. Yeah. He's just one man, like you and me are one man. And our attitude and thought is not a bit better than the average man watching this telecast
sure it is.
here.
Well, if we're right.
No, it's not.
Depends whether we're right or not.
Well, the editor of the newspaper's wrong in that particular instance. Well, why did my wife get all the Negro support? In Montgomery, Alabama, she got 5,000 votes in round numbers to 2,000 in the all-Negro ward right in the city of Montgomery.
Well, it could be because the Negroes were mistaken.
Oh, I see. They didn't know how to vote. Is that what you're charging the people in the Negro voters? No, the Negro voters in Alabama have as much intelligence.
I don't think the majority of people in New York State know how to vote. After all, they turned down the opportunity to elect me mayor. So I hardly consider it scandalous to allege that people don't know necessarily.
Well, what you were saying is the Negro voters didn't know what they were doing in Alabama.
I don't think they did. No, certainly not to the extent.
Well, how do you know that? Were you down in Alabama doing the campaign? Did you see us speak? Did you see the Negroes shake hands with my wife? Did you see their endorsements of her?
I've criticized Julius Caesar, even though I wasn't in Rome.
Well, why didn't you come down and see for yourself? Well, you're probably wrong on what you said about Julius Caesar.
Oh, shit. That was slick.
I'm sure I was.
Julius Caesar.
Yeah. Well, actually, I spent 9 months of my life in Alabama, and...
9 months, and you're an expert on it.
No, I'm not an expert. But I'm sufficiently an expert to understand why prominent and patriotic conservatives tend to shy away from your policies.
Well, who in Alabama tended to shy away from my policies?
Well, the editor of the Alabama
You know
Journal.
why?
You call him a conservative?
Because people turn their noses up at him when they go to the country club. That's why they don't like his politics. Because they fucking care more about their little bitch-ass social groups at the fucking country club. I mean, let's call it what it is.
Philosophy and attitude that which he changed, that's right. But I was for Kennedy. But I was not for him after he was inaugurated, but nothing personal about it. I had a high regard for Mr. Kennedy personally, and I have a high regard for all of them personally. I'm not going to reflect on them personally, but this editor you're talking about is the strongest Lyndon Johnson supporter in Alabama.
Well, maybe he figures that's the
Lyndon Johnson supporter in Alabama.
He may figure that's the alternative to being a Wallace man in Alabama, because you haven't exactly encouraged a two-party system in Alabama, have you?
No, that's right. I haven't encouraged it.
Yeah.
I haven't encouraged it.
Which means that a lot of people who vote for somebody are voting for that somebody because they haven't had an opportunity to vote for somebody else.
No, they just don't believe in what I believe in, the editor of the Alabama Journal. But I might point out that that's water over the dam. The people of Alabama elected my wife overwhelmingly. She carried 65 out of 67 counties. She carried her opponent's county. She got the largest vote ever given a gubernatorial candidate in Alabama. The Alabama Journal, to the contrary notwithstanding, and some of the professional conservatives, as you say, who oppose me because they were professional Republicans. I just support anybody who's a Republican.
Yeah.
And I don't support anybody who's a Democrat or who's a Republican. I was not for Mr. Johnson in 64.
Let's ask Mr. Buckley's comment on that.
On what?
On the fact that despite the Alabama Journal, Alabama voted overwhelmingly for Governor Wallace's wife.
I don't think there's. I don't think. Look, Mr. Wallace wouldn't be here at this moment if it weren't demonstrated that he's very popular in Alabama, and Mr. Javits is very popular in New York. I believe, I happen myself to believe in about 98% of the same things that Mr. Wallace believes in preference over those of Mr. Javits, and yet Mr. Javits is a fellow Republican. So all of these anomalies are hardly historical. What I think is of great national interest is, how will Mr. Wallace do in 1968? And the answer is, of course, that he's appealing to people to whom Mr. Goldwater appealed, Mr. Reagan appealed, but I think he's appealing to them as an imposter, because I think that Mr. Wallace's principal a franchise comes from people who are concerned over
Well,
this issue.
let me say that I enjoy. You think he's an imposter because you think basically his issue is the
I think he's using the rhetoric of conservatism for anti-conservative purposes.
Programs.
I think
and of course,
actually
I've been on
he's
many
wrong.
programs, Meet the Press and Face the Nation.
I think Buckley is dead wrong. He's assuming this guy is coming from a place of bad faith, and I don't think he is. I think he genuinely is coming from a place of good faith. And I think, Buckley, he's got his little country club Republican, his little, treehouse club, and he doesn't want to let this uncouth guy into his group. He's not one of the polished country club millionaire Republicans like he is.
The programs, and I've always tried to conduct myself in the proper manner, and I've never reflected on people and their integrity. But of course, you do. You say I'm an imposter.
That doesn't have to do with your integrity.
Yes, I know, but I don't. In the first
He means
place,
a political imposter, I guess.
Well,
I've said
that
as
in
much
itself,
about Mr. Javits as a Republican. He's an
imposter. Of course, all you can
Republican.
do is sit up and listen to you and accept it because that's all you can do about it. But I have never been an imposter politically. I've expressed myself in the manner that I saw fit and what I stood for, and even in '62 I had people to tell you you're going to lose the race because you're talking too strong on this issue.
I think you're as imposter as a conservative. That's well, with your integrity.
Let's get back to this. You said, now what else have I done in Alabama that
That's your favorite
you don't
subject,
like?
isn't it?
That you don't like?
I am not a student.
You against me helping the old folks. We've got that off.
We have to interrupt now. We will be back in just a moment.
What else have I done that makes me not a
Man, they used to have this on public PBS broadcast.
Well, now, of course, you're trying to be funny about it, but you're the one that made the statement that my actions as governor says I'm not a conservative. Well, what have I done in Alabama that you're against?
You are in the populist tradition. A complete, as I see it, opportunist as regards the use of funds. If they come in your direction
Is that how we're gonna? He calls him a populist, and then immediately follows it up with opportunist. I mean, come on, man, and that's why it's a dirty word today. Why populist is considered like a slur amongst politicians. Like I said, it's just the Roman word for democracy, and it's ridiculous.
Be distributed by you.
Well, what funds have I used that you wouldn't have used?
Well, I would not have voted. I put it this way: I wouldn't have aligned myself with a party which has become synonymous with a party that looks to Washington
Democratic Party?
looks to Washington for the solution of practically every problem.
No one looks to Washington
whether it's
for the
old
solution
age
of every
or
problem.
Well, the presidents do. Put it that way. I think the presidents of the United States who have been Democrats, I think, can be considered legitimate spokesmen for Democratic ideas.
What's
your
comment on that? Oh, I haven't been with the National Democratic Party myself for many years. I voted. I didn't vote for Mr. Johnson in '64. I did vote for Mr. Kennedy in 1960. But I'm not for Mr. Johnson this year.
So in 1963, you started to discover what Republicans and conservatives have known now for quite a long while.
With what?
What Republicans and conservatives have known quite a long while, namely the Democratic Party is dominated by a centralist wing, which is anti-conservative. Yeah.
What's the difference?
Wouldn't it therefore be appropriate for you to disavow the Democratic Party?
I disavow them right now. I disavow the National Democratic Party.
How about resigning from it right now? How about resigning from it?
I've already resigned from it. See, you're way off. I resigned a long time ago.
So you would not take the Democratic nomination for senator then?
Anyway, it's almost over anyhow. I wanted to cue this other one up. There you go.
This is the first in a series of
This is his mother. What a great woman. Like, I mean, that just goes to show you the heart of Americans. It's so generous. We're the best people in the world. Without a doubt, the best people. His mother was a Quaker. I mean, but you know, his father was a rather a freewheeling, cantankerous kind of guy. So he kind of got like I mean, he grew up as a Quaker, you know. A lot of people don't realize that. Jesus. That's crazy. Wow. It's about gas stations. Oh man, sounds like just like a man. I'm gonna have to do all the fucking work. I'm a Methodist. Man, what a different time. Wow. That's why people were so intelligent back then. How did he know how much? Huh.
which allows only one view, both of economics and politics, in which almost everything is either owned or controlled by the state. including the media, including the ideas, including freedom of discussion and everything. There is no freedom of discussion. Now, between those two ways, the free society and the totally controlled society, there are, of course, variations. I think what we've learned in Britain is that we've gradually, over the last certainly 12 or 13 years, with perhaps a little interruption, gone slowly further and further away from the free society towards something else. At the same time, we found, I don't find it strange, but some other people do, that we have stopped creating wealth. We've had a large number of increasing restrictions, and you've been finding two things. First, that we are more and more concentrating on redistributing the wealth we've got, rather than creating any more. To create more, you need a slightly freer society, and you need an incentive society. Naturally, when I see that happening, I look with very great alarm to societies which have gone even further left. That is, they've tried to redistribute even more and haven't had the incentives for people working hard on their own account, doing well for their families, and often then being able to create jobs for others. They've produced a much more prosperous society than we have. But by and large, you've got the two broad different economic and political approaches.
Well, I'm as usual, interested in what you say, but I would like you to focus, if you will, on what is essentially a problem in epistemology. How do people learn? Now, for instance, the Prime Minister, Mr. Callahan, by the way, since we're here rather than in New York, I take it you feel a little bit freer to discuss the names of your colleagues, right, and criticize
We'll
them.
do our best.
Okay. Now, Mr.
I know
Callahan,
when I'm in New York, I don't like criticizing our leading members of government. I will criticize policies.
let me digress there for just a moment. A while ago, the Archduke Otto von Habsburg told me that the tradition inside Europe had collapsed about staying away from each other's political affairs. He gave as evidence the fact that he had campaigned along with several Austrians for the German Christian Democrats in the last German elections, and that a whole delegation of people from the Labour Party had come in from Great Britain loudly advocating the election to Germans of the socialists. Is that a new development?
Well, no, not quite. You see, there's always been a movement for international socialism. Always, and the socialist parties have always had contact with other socialist parties, and of course, as you know, the communist parties have had contacts the world over, and we say that socialism is a way on the road to communism. So we've had an international socialism.
But they usually use indigenous people to do their work.
Well,
they
no.
usually don't send Englishmen to Germany to tell the
Well,
Germans
we,
how to
for
vote.
example, have in the Labour Party here, to which I don't belong, as you know, but I've seen leading politicians from other countries come to the Labour Party conference here. Now, on the whole, we who belong to the other side have never had that alliance with other like-minded parties throughout the world. Incidentally, in Europe, we're trying now to get it, just for that very reason. We say socialism tends to stand together throughout the world. We must have what I call the freer way of life, likewise standing together. Otherwise, we're in danger of becoming one-party states, one party only in power. So I am also doing that. I went to the Christian Democrat Party conference in Hanover before the German elections to talk to them about how we were feeling and the things we had in common. So we are getting together just in the same
A condition set by Mr. and Bustle, he produced
of myself was that in 1974 I should present myself to the same constituency, advocating on most of the important issues the opposite to the policies for which I had invited them to vote 4 years before. And whether it had been Mr. Heath or Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones, that would have been the same. And a more immediate possibility, and now I'm coming closer to your question, which indeed I will endeavour to answer head on. The more immediate impossibility I saw was of inviting the electorate to take or to approve the stance of the moment, the stance of the government at the moment, when I knew and they knew that that stance was bound very shortly to be altered, and that indeed the political reason for having the election so suddenly and in such unusual circumstances was that it was thought to be easier, having got, if possible, a majority, having 4 or 5 years ahead instead of 1 or 1 1/4, to do something which one had been resisting doing, and to alter a policy which was itself an alteration of the underlying policy of the Tory party. Now, to be precise, The prices and incomes policy, the attempt to control inflation.
What we call wage and price control.
Wage and price control. By wage and price control had run itself into the ground. Everybody knew that it had run itself into the ground. It was predictable that it was bound to do so. A freeze? Yes, you can have a freeze for a time. And then you say, well, what comes after the freeze? Oh, they say, we will allow everybody 4%. Well, that can go on for a time. But the world is a world of change, and relativities, whether they be of miners or ministers, are constantly altering. So you can't carry on long with 4% for everybody. And then comes the impossibility of all wage and price control. But some authority has to say exactly how much each price is to be, exactly how much each wage is to alter. Now, there's been no human machine invented which can do that, other than the free market. And so that a clash is bound to come as soon as you get to that phase between reality as everybody perceives it and the theory of wage and price control. I couldn't have predicted that it would come over the miners, but it was bound to come over some group of employees, and it came.
Well, you're making a theoretical point on which, as I guess you know, I profoundly agree. What is not clear to me,
yes,
or to most Americans,
yes,
You know, I honestly, I find as I get older, I used to staunchly disagree with Christopher Hitchens on everything, and I would agree with maybe somebody like Bill Buckley on other things.
If you turn.
Robinson, thank you for joining in on CNN News 18. The last time we spoke was prior to your prison sentence. You are now a national figure, someone who has shaken up the establishment even more so after Unite the Kingdom rally. How much has changed for you and England in the last 1 year?
Lots has changed. My imprisonment and my persecution was an attempt to break our movement. We've come back out. I just spent 7 months on solitary confinement for making a film. I'm a journalist. It's my job to make films. Free speech has been under attack for a long time. I felt like I've been punched every day during those 7 months. And on Saturday, we, the British public, punched back.
What in the hell?
Get vote, take all your damn money in taxes. But I'm relatively liberal, live and let live. That is me. And in my ideal world, what I want to do is to make sure that everybody can come together, compromise, understanding we can't all have everything we want. You got to compromise, you got to work together. And I want both parties to be competitive. So guess what? When they're going out there, and whether it's the black community, it's the Hispanic community, it's the Jewish community, it's the white community, you got to sell us on your ideas. You can't just engage in demagoguery and vilifying the other side and get votes for yourself because you're scared of living hell out of everybody else when it pertains to your competition. What are your ideas for this country? That's me, that's where I stand. And why is that relevant? Because on this particular day, right now, as we stand here, okay, living in the world that we're living in, October 1st, 2025, there's a government shutdown. There's a government shutdown. And the regular blather that you always hear, you're hearing yet again. The Democrats are telling you that Trump is sitting around and doesn't care about the American citizen, doesn't care that 750,000 federal employees can end up losing their jobs, or a vast majority of them, whether being furloughed or fired. And the GOP and the Republicans and Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House,
toward the sun. They engage in photosynthesis, they absorb water, things of that nature in order to stay alive. So from that, what is...
I thought, if you'd ask me, maybe I'm naive or ignorant, but I thought men have been treating women as feminists all this time. True, that's what I thought. That's how I grew up, knowing that men treat women as feminists. Why? Yes, somebody recently tried to do a very smart thing when he divided positive and negative. Women are emotional, men are not. Women are soft. By soft, I don't mean skin, but in terms of even their temperament. Men love to play with things. Women love to interact with other humans. It's nature. But you see, I wasn't this proud to be a man until feminists began to say that they also want to do equally what men do. I always thought we've done a lot of wrong. So if a girl who is 16 years old started screaming, I'm feminist for 2.5 years, she screamed, will she become a feminist?
And he's explaining to the
Hello and welcome to ZPR, ZANU Project Rethink. My name is Frank ZANU and I'm in the studio today with not a total stranger, Nancy Forville, who is the project manager for the town of Milford. Nancy was here about 5 months ago and it was a heated topic, and she's back in the studio with me today. Now, the topic we are going to discuss today, it's a very hot one and it's very important, especially if you consider yourself a minority in America or a naturalized citizen. This may affect you in some way, but as we always do at ZPR, we don't say anything. We don't have facts, truth, or lie. We just simply question all the answers. So welcome to the studio, Nancy. Good to see you again.
Me.
Yes. Now I heard you have a new puppy that has an Instagram page. What's the name? What's the name?
Zora the Cavapoo.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And people are donating money.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm getting myself a puppy.
People love her. So yeah, definitely check her out on Zora.
I see. What's the breed?
She's a Cavapoo.
I see. I don't know anything about that, but I'll say yes, yes, yes. All right. So you said you have this video. You sent it to me.
Yeah.
If we can listen to it one more time, especially the place where the white gentleman was talking about what he's concerned about. Yeah.
I want to know how it is you voted for Donald Trump when you're so into facts, because his entire campaign is not based in facts. It was all based in propaganda and emotion.
I voted for Donald Trump for one reason only. His policies, if implemented, would slow the dispossession of whites in the United States. If you were to deport all illegal immigrants, if you were to think very hard about letting in any Muslims, all of this would slow the rate at which whites are becoming a minority.
Why are you so worried about the white dispossession of America?
Because I want my people to survive.
Oh, okay. I see where the controversy came from. So this is a young Asian, I believe Chinese, who was born in the United States.
Yes.
So she's citizen by birth, a Chinese, and then a white gentleman, and they're having dinner, quite friendly, and the white gentleman is concerned about what he termed the dispossession of white America.
Right.
The Asian young man was saying, but why would you be concerned of the dispossession? And you are saying what?
Why would he be concerned? I mean, don't we all live in America? Whites, blacks, Asians. Why would you be so concerned that, I guess, power is you're not going to have it anymore just because of what? So he's happy because he's assuming that, or not assuming, he believes that the reason why he voted for Trump is so that Trump can carry out these policies that will protect white people in order for them to carry out or to continue to have power, access to certain liberties.
I think we would take away the Trump part, because a president is not going to stop the dispossession of white America. But I think the central thing in this argument they had was that the white gentleman is concerned that with the rate of birth, and many people have said this, and the influx of other ethnicities and race, that there will come a time, if it's not slowed down, there will be the dispossession of white America, right? And he went on to say, the reason I'm concerned is because then my children would have no legacy and culture left in this country. We will have no, and I don't see anything wrong at all with what he's saying. No country would allow foreigners. So they say when a tree falls into a river, it doesn't become a fish. Now, I'm a naturalized American, but I'm not going to say that I'm an American. I'm American politically, but not culturally. The Chinese dude was born in this country, and therefore he's American by birth. But that doesn't make him American culturally.
Why? Why doesn't it make him American? Doesn't he live here?
No, culturally, I mean. When you talk about white people, the founding fathers of this country were of the same uniform background, WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. They have a culture, a religion, a language, a history, and they want to protect it. This is the home of their children. This is what they build for their children, and you came in as a guest. the guest will never take over a house. Never happen. Number two, I really would support the white man, okay, for the dispossession of white, as he's saying, because you see, he's trying to protect you and I. Because if this country falls into the hands, the majority of the wrong people, whatever attracts us to come here will be gone, and we will never be able to come here anymore.
So you're saying that immigrants wouldn't be able to sustain America or sustain civilization? Is that what you're saying? That we don't have the capacity to do that?
Well, I'm not saying it. I'm only describing it. Have you taken a look at Haiti recently? Would you, even as an immigrant here, want Haiti to become the majority in this country?
I mean,
have you taken a look at some of the African countries, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and all these countries that are flocking to come to this country? If they could maintain where they are to look like this place, then they wouldn't be flocking here, right? So the point the gentleman is making actually is in my interest, in the interest of people from outside who should still have an America they can come to.
But you're only describing developing countries, right? You talked about Haiti, you talked about Somalia, you're talking about other developing countries.
Well, you can see undertone what he's saying. He will be
well, he also mentioned Middle Easterns. He also
yes, exactly.
He doesn't like he doesn't appreciate, I guess, Asians, Middle Easterns, blacks, or anybody who's not white. So you're saying
dispossess his race. Yes.
So you're saying that because immigrants are coming into this country, that they wouldn't be able to maintain the white picket fence, the greenery. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, to that, you and I don't have to look very far away at all. Have you taken a look at any black neighborhood in America recently, starting with Boston, starting with Detroit, starting with Baltimore, Bridgeport, Waterbury? Have you seen them?
I mean, I understand those are cities that are failing.
Exactly. Now, imagine.
So we're blaming it on the black people. We're not putting responsibility or accountability on the city or anything like that.
The city is made up of those people. A city is only with people that live in it. A place is only as good as the people who live in it. America is only as good as it is that attracted people from around the world based on who built it, established it, and maintains it. If we can build and maintain public toilets in our country, we can maintain this complex infrastructure in America. You seriously, as an immigrant, think that if this country falls in the hands of some countries that you have just mentioned, we still have an America that will attract people from West Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, Asia, and all other places?
So why is he so even concerned that there's going to be white dispossession when they already own everything, they already maintain everything? What are you afraid of? Why is he...
He's just saying, let's keep it the way it is so people can keep coming here.
No, the reason why people come here is because there's an engine to work. There's not manufacturing anymore, but there are
opportunities.
Reasons. Yeah, there's
opportunities. Who created those opportunities? The people he doesn't want displaced. So they created the opportunity that began to attract the world. The founding fathers of this country, who were later colonized. The United States of America was founded by white people. Yes, they stole it from Indians, fine. Whoever want to say that. They stole the land, fine. We are talking about what it became. It became what is now attracted to the entire world.
How would you describe America right now?
In what sense?
In the sense of who runs America right now.
Who runs it?
Yes.
The administration, you mean?
Not just the administration. So the way he's describing it is he's basically saying, I don't want all of these people here because I want...
No. Dispossession of white, meaning that...
So it's okay to have all these people here.
But they're here already.
Yeah, they're here already.
Exactly. He's not saying that he's angry that people are here. He understands what immigration means. So he understands that the dispossession means that if these people becomes the majority, my children will have no future. They will have no culture, no language, nothing.
But we bring the culture.
No, you came into my house. My culture was there before you arrived as a guest.
But we're coming with cultures. We're coming with customs.
What people do in other countries, which is beautiful about America, is this. If you go into somebody, so we have migrants and immigrants, right? Migrants go to a place just to have a better life, work, make money, and go home. Okay. Immigrants go to a place in order to have permanent residency. Okay. Now, if you choose to go to a place to have permanent residency, there are two things you need to do, okay? To keep the growth of the country, the development of the country, and whatever it was that attracted you. One, segregate yourself as the Chinese do nicely in Chinatown, so you can protect your own little culture in Chinatown. Or the rest, assimilate.
Okay, but immigrants come here, they work, they build businesses. They're the ones who are the doctors. They're the ones who are engineers.
He's not complaining about that. He's talking about you becoming the majority, which means things would have fallen into the hands of the majority. It's all he's concerned about.
So when they fall into the majority, things are just going to fall apart.
Well, we've seen it from where you came from. That's what drove you out to this place. I wouldn't even want somebody to come here. And I'm saying that you know that this complex infrastructure can only be managed and has been managed for 250 years.
By whites.
That's correct.
And they're the only ones who understand administration. They're the only ones who understand how to maintain.
The country is built on a culture.
So you're saying
without that culture, America wouldn't be.
So you're saying if minorities and immigrants come together and they're working in an administration, they won't be able to maintain a city? They don't have the capacity?
Do you have to ask me that question?
I'm just simply saying because
it sounds like He's not concerned about Germans coming to dispossess whites. It's not talking about...
Because they're already white.
That's correct. It's not, no, he's saying their country, okay? I wouldn't worry if a bunch of Japanese are coming to my country. I know wherever they would occupy.
Why wouldn't you worry?
Because I've seen where they're coming from. It's attractive. Wherever they occupy, they'll make it look at where they're coming from, right? I'm not going to worry about crime. I'm not going to worry about blight. I'm not going to worry about trashing my streets. I'm not going to worry about petty stealing because I know where they're coming from.
Because they don't have the capacity to do those things.
That's correct. But I know certain people, if they're coming to my country, I'll be worried. Because of what you know about them. All you have to do, this gentleman has a window to some countries. He's seen the way they are in those countries, that you can't even handle a simple disagreement, political disagreement that doesn't turn violent and bloody, where people are killed and all that. He's seen it. Why shouldn't he worry? Nancy, let's really be fair to this man. He's not just saying bluntly that no foreigner should come to this country. He said, if you become the majority, my children will have no more culture.
So he also said if the policies that Trump administers will help white people. So how does he feel? How does he even have the audacity to even say it? How does he even feel?
Okay,
like it's
that's
okay?
what I said from the beginning. I'll take the Trump policies out of it because no single American policy. Trump said, I'm going to clean up the country with violent illegal immigrants. Any country would do so. Now I'll tell you something. The United States of America, all the way from the 60s, 70s, all the way to the late 80s, was the only country among all the industrialized countries that was very friendly to illegals. America never chased illegals in the streets and sent them out. Never did. In the 60s, ask anyone who lived in Europe. Germany had it, France had it, even the UK had it, Israel had it. You can't be walking around these countries screaming, I'm an immigrant, I'm illegal, and they take you out. Israel doesn't allow it. Many countries don't allow it. Russia doesn't allow it. South Korea doesn't allow it. You can't be an illegal immigrant and be bold enough to have a placard announcing it. It is only recently that the crime has increased and the border at the southern end of this country became porous, that anything and everybody is pouring in, that caused the country to be alarmed. Something like that, just within 8 years, when the number of illegal immigrants pouring through the southern border, have you seen the
Who'd have thunk it? This dude shot out. Who goes to the Playboy Mansion? Wow. Literally anybody that talks about the Playboy Mansion for hot girl, like, what the fuck, dude? What are you even talking about? It's like fucking dirty old men and shit. Dirty fucking old men. The love of the game. That is weird. I can't even believe that. How does somebody love the nightlife like that? What the fuck is going on?
I don't understand. Thank you, Ring. I don't talk to anybody Lower Road. I don't talk to anyone. I don't care who you are. I'm not here for conversation. Yeah, I'll show you the whole area and the layout, see? And make it easy for y'all.
What the fuck?
Thanks, Cashflow. I'm glad you like it.
It looks totally different than it did the other day. That's weird.
You're watching me. Hey, Dirk. You're so funny. I always feel like somebody's watching me.
Oh wow, these jerk-offs. Wow. What the fuck? I can't even fucking believe it. That there's a feed with these jerk-offs. Of all people. Wow. Jesus, this could not be any lamer. And people are watching it too. That's what's even funnier, to my mind. People are watching these losers. Huh. Fucking Freedom Flotilla. Whack. You know, I feel bad for black guys who are Democrats because they feel the pressure from their family, not just Republicans or Seriously. No damn joke, man. What a hack. This dude's a freaking hack. Yeah, they were out there fucking stirring shit up. The fuck? Wow. Why do people try this? Fucking dumbass people try that shit.
Go from 0 to 60, you know, just in the snap of a finger. You want to be in good shape and be able to do the things that you need to do right then and there. I want to be doing a traffic stop on this white SUV in front of us. It doesn't have a rear license plate. And it's actually going to be taken off from us. Going to be going northbound on McCrum, approaching Columbia Way. It's a white Expedition, no rear license plate is what we got now, but it's taken off. Oh, just went through the street closing sign on Columbia Way. Now going eastbound on Columbia from Columbia Way. Eastbound Columbia from Columbia Way. 5 through. My speed's up to 80 now. He's got about a 3-block head start on me. So we got spikes. We got some spikes on the vehicle. Sounds like they got a good spike on it. We got a couple other vehicles still trying to catch up to it.
Let's do Columbia and Interstate Place. Let's get that locked down.
Okay, Columbia and Interstate locked down. We're gonna stop here. Go ahead, just park right there. Nobody's back there. He's supposedly in here, but just to be on the safe side, if there's no car right there, just hang tight there. Thanks, guys. All right, so we got a perimeter set up. 534, all I got for this is a white male, about mid-20s, dark hair.
It's actually 2 people. It's a male and a female.
Come here, ma'am. What are you doing?
Back lot.
Do you live here?
No.
Okay.
I was looking for somebody.
Come here. Just 534. Did anybody see the female get out? Because I just had a female walk out behind the house and says she's just looking for somebody. Were you in the white Expedition?
I will her because they're saying we've got a witness here who thinks he might be able to ID her.
534. I think this is going to be her. She's breathing kind of heavy. Go ahead and have a seat. Ma'am, get off your phone. Who's Dakoa? Huh?
I accidentally caught him.
Is that the guy in the white expedition?
You want to hustle up here and take a look at this other guy they got, make sure he's your guy.
Copy that, Lewis. Make sure she doesn't leave. And it sounds like they just went in custody with the driver half.
Code 4, you can have the air.
Nothing, no more outstanding.
That's gonna be him. Hey, what's up? So you just want to tell me what was going on?
Well, my brother was driving and I took off out of the car because I knew how to warn.
When did you take off out of the car?
As soon as he pulled over.
Where at?
Right over there.
Okay. So you're saying your brother was driving?
Yes, there was 3 people in the car.
3 people in the car. And what was your brother's name?
I don't know.
You don't know what your brother's name is?
I know his name, but I'm just not going to say it.
You just don't want to tell me what it is?
I'm not a snitch, so I'm not going to say his name.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you guys probably found him already, so.
Okay. What about the road closure sign? You guys blasted right through that. What was you telling your brother?
All I know is I grabbed onto the back and I squeezed.
Okay. What did you tell your brother when he kept driving down the road?
I told him stop. He didn't stop the whole time.
He didn't stop the whole time?
Yeah, because I was going to hop out and run, I'll be honest.
Okay. Go ahead and have a seat for me. These double locked and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. You cool with having him in your back of your car?
Just look away from me. Just seatbelted in here. All right, sit tight.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man.
All right, ma'am. How do you know him?
She's my kid's dad, and we're not getting along.
Okay. So then I get behind you because he doesn't have a license plate on his vehicle. What happens then?
He said that he was getting the car in front, and I was like...
He was what?
He was that you were getting the car in the front of us, and I was like, stop. I was like, he's getting us. I was like, you need to stop, and he's like, no. And he just took off. I was like, no, you need to let me out.
And what was he saying when you said I need to let you out?
Shut up, shut up, shut up. I was like, let me out. He was like, no, you're not getting out of the car, and he locked the door.
Where at?
Right when we hit the corner.
Right at still in St. John's? Right there at I believe it was McCrum?
Yeah.
You were because he started to slow down in front of the truck, right?
Yeah.
And you about got out and then he locked the doors?
And he locked the doors and rolled up the windows.
Okay.
And I was like, no.
And still during this time it's just you and him driving, right? You're in the front passenger seat, he's driving, right?
Yeah.
Okay, nobody else in the vehicle?
No.
Okay.
Just 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, Tyler. Rita told me that you were the one driving. It's only been you and her and the expedition all day. What do you got to say for that?
No comment. I'm not going to go against her. If that's what she's saying, then that's what she's saying.
Well, because that's what happened.
No, because that's my kid's mom. I'm not going to put her in a situation.
Okay, well, she had no problem putting you in that situation.
Well, at the end of the day, then if that's her business. We're 2 different people.
Well, this is your chance to talk because we're borderline on a kidnap right now. She's wanting to get out of the car. You're telling her no. She's then screaming and crying, wanting to get out of the vehicle.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Well, you haven't been honest with me yet, so why would I believe you're going to be honest with me now?
I'm going to be honest with you.
So are you really going to be honest with me, or are you going to continue to lie because you haven't told a single true story since we've been sitting here? So are you going to tell me the truth?
Yes, the true story is...
Okay, then be honest with me and tell me the truth, because if you start to lie, I'm going to shut this door and this conversation's over with. Do you understand me?
Yep.
Okay.
Truth is yeah, I was driving.
Okay.
Okay.
the fuck? Really? Wow. I can't even fucking believe this. Fuck me, oh. Wow. Mm. Mm.
Elections for President of the United States against someone like Donald Trump who knows no floor. To be a black woman running for President of the United States and as a vice presidential running.
The most embarrassing thing I have seen on the internet so far.
I guess I'd ask you to just elaborate on that a little bit. It's hard to hear.
Yeah.
With you running as, you're the first woman elected vice president. You're a black woman and a South Asian woman elected to that high office, very nearly elected president. To say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively because he was gay is hard to hear.
No, that's not what I said. That he couldn't be on the ticket because he is gay.
She's so stupid.
My point, as I write in the book, is
be so stupid?
That I was clear that in 107 days, in one of the most hotly contested elections for President of the United States against someone like Donald Trump who knows no floor. To be a black woman running for President of the United States and as a vice presidential running mate, a gay man, with the stakes being so high, it made me very sad, but I also realized it would be a real risk.
I can't believe these people. Like, is nobody coaching her? Like, does she not go over this before she get on TV? Pretty much, he couldn't do it because he was gay. Like, what are you saying? You just said it'll be a risk for a gay man to be on your campaign. What are you saying?
I've been an advocate and an ally of the LGBT community my entire life. So it wasn't about. Yeah, right. So it wasn't.
Grip, stability, precision. That's the essence of driving. Lawfin.
The
hardest thing is to get started. You have to get it on paper.
Packed house here today, and I have a very special guest with us, the Vice President of the United States. He'll deliver some remarks and take some questions. First, I just want to share remarks of my own. Democrats in Congress have officially shut down the United States government. House Republicans passed a nonpartisan, clean piece of legislation to extend current government funding until November 21st. But nearly every single Democrat senator voted against this bill. To be clear, this was the exact same bill that Democrats approved 6 short months ago in March, just adjusted for inflation. This is the same kind of clean funding bill that Democrats passed 13 separate times when they held the majority during Joe Biden's administration. So the American people woke up this morning and asked the obvious question: why is the government shut down right now? The answer is pure partisan politics being played by the Democrat Party. The Democrats shut down the government because President Trump and the Republicans will not force American taxpayers to pay for free health care for illegal aliens. America is $37 trillion in debt. We cannot afford to provide taxpayer-funded free health care to illegals who broke the law to enter our country. To put this all into perspective, the Democrats refuse to keep the government open over health care to illegal.
Legally have never been eligible for the Obamacare subsidies, for Medicare, for Medicaid. So what exactly are you saying that they're trying to do when you talk about giving free health care to them?
I'm so glad you asked. Okay, so when we passed the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Cut, we had Medicaid reforms in the bill. You and I talked about it on the air. What we did was to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse. There were a lot of people on the program who were enrolled in the program who were never eligible to be there. Medicaid is intended.
So your wife overdosed on Tylenol, so your baby will be born with autism. And since she ate an entire bottle of Tylenol, I'm also positive she's a complete tard. Do you have any idea why she'd do that? Because the president said not to take it while pregnant, so my wife took the whole bottle to protest. I tried to tell her even if he's wrong, taking a full bottle of Tylenol is insane, but she just called me a fascist pig.
Oh my god, this goes so hard.
Once and he has no idea. Well, I tell him, but it's not like I can walk into the White House whenever I want. Maybe. Or can you? This is the funniest thing I've ever done. Mr. President, I have an important message for you. Who are you? How'd you get past my Secret Service? I told them I have an important message for you. Oh, okay. What is it? This is going to sound crazy, Mr. President, but every time you tell the American people not to do something, woke liberal women do the opposite. Well, I knew that. I just like trolling them. I was actually about to troll them again. JD, is my live feed ready? It's ready. Fellow Americans, it's come to my attention that there's a clear connection between autism and women sucking balls. Having a child with severe mental disabilities. So I urge all women to stop sucking balls immediately because it's not good. Mr. President, you should be
Oh, shit.
Reese from the WNBA is talking about you. The president can't tell me not to suck balls because it's my right as a female athlete in the WNBA to suck balls whenever I want. Well, there you have it. A talking smallmouth bass is playing in the WNBA.
Oh my
so
god.
Your wife overdosed on Tylenol, so your baby will be born.
How many leadership principles are there?
There are 11, sir.
You cannot make this stuff up.
I got one question for you. Are you glad Charlie Kirk is dead?
No, I don't think anybody in this country should be dying to political violence. It's insane.
Destiny told his co-host, when asked point blank if he wanted the bullet to kill Trump, that the worst thing that could have happened was the bullet missing. He said this to Pisco. I watched it. This guy's an obfuscation machine. You know what else, Destiny? Why should we believe you? I think you are glad Kirk is dead. All of your tweets seem to prove that, and you would have been happy if Trump was assassinated. You've made that very clear. You don't care that Kirk is dead, and you're actually probably glad he is. Isn't that really what's true?
I don't want anybody in this country to die to political violence. I don't think in the United States of America that should be happening. The Republican president of the United States, who has presided over more violence politically in this country, more large protests than any president in all of U.S. history, for some reason can't bring himself to say all of us need to calm down. And
so did Trump deserve the bullet? Did Trump deserve the bullet?
This is all you care about are the political hit jobs.
Just answer the question, bro. Did Trump deserve the bullet?
I never said that. No, I never said that.
I can't stand
You
that
cannot
they're
make this stuff
obfuscating.
up.
I got one question for you. Are you glad Charlie Kirk is
They
dead?
just refuse to fucking take accountability, like trying to nail Jello to the fucking wall.
Get on turn!
Here, let's watch this because it's so funny.
Do you find my outfit offensive?
Yes. Yeah.
Why?
Because it's not your culture.
Are you Mexican?
No.
Yes.
Because you're not, like, Mexican.
I think it reaffirms stereotypes that are offensive to people.
You don't really understand what their culture means and what it means to wear these things.
It's not yours.
A few moments later.
Do you like my costume?
Yes.
Does it offend you?
No.
No.
Wow. Wow.
You like my outfit?
Mexicans people like it.
Does my outfit offend you?
No, not at all.
Some
How
people get
about
offended
that?
by what I'm wearing.
Every other
No,
fucking type of
it's
person
not
gets all
offensive.
bent
I
out
think
of shape.
you're in the right atmosphere.
I love it, actually.
You think it's offensive?
No, not at all.
Are you Mexican?
I am.
Self-righteous
Do you know
arrogance.
who sold me this?
They get offended on other
Mexicans.
people's behalf.
Oh,
It's
really?
just
And so you're white and you get
them
offended.
trying to
but then
exert
Mexican people who sold me this and
shame.
made me this don't get offended.
I've noticed that, yes.
and
It's
exert
kind of
control.
Weird.
Here, let's watch this because it's so funny.
Do you find my outfit offensive?
Some guy shows up at your house who calls himself Jesus.
Yeah.
And instead of calling the police, you invite him into the studio.
I just went out to the door and said, yeah, what do you want? And he's sort of just a kind of bearded guy. And he said, I'm Jesus. I said, you better come in.
Really?
You want a cup of tea? I thought, so I just started chatting to him. And I thought, he's probably not Jesus. He's probably
He's
just
probably
sort of
schizophrenic.
a hippie, maybe
Yeah.
schizophrenic. I thought, you never know.
Right.
And I'm not going to say,
No,
go away.
You gotta be
That's
fucking
so
kidding
true.
me.
So I called him in, and
Yeah.
then I said, well, look, I've got this session.
Yeah.
And if you want, you can come and hang out there. So I came into the guys and so I said,
Man.
look, he says he's Jesus.
To
Now,
get
I
to
don't
play
know
with
if he
Paul
is.
McCartney.
Right.
But I'm not going to take any chances here. Is it okay if he just sits in the corner?
Or to watch.
And I said to him, shh, don't say a word. Just be Jesus.
Some guy shows up at your house who calls himself Jesus.
People often ask just how.
All right, Taylor Swift. I'm your doctor and you're in my office having some kind of problem? Yes. You see, Doc, last night I told my boyfriend he could eat my ass, and when I woke up this morning, it was gone. He ate the whole thing. I mean, I expected him to eat only part of it, but I can't believe he would just go ahead and eat my entire ass like that. Taylor, have you considered that you might just not have a decent ass?
Oh,
Where'd you get your
shit.
medical degree? Retard camp? Of course I have an ass. My boyfriend just ate it last night, that's all.
Oh
Okay,
my
well,
God.
maybe you can try eating food and doing squats for once in your life. Is that some kind...
I'll give you 1,000 pounds right now if you could tell me the U.S.
Mr. Gambini, are you mocking me with that outfit?
Mocking you? No, I'm not.
Why does this fish stay perfectly still when it's being bitten? Is it not afraid of dying?
What the fuck?
This is the ocean sunfish, often nicknamed the trash of the sea. Whenever fishermen catch one, they usually toss it back because it's almost all bone and skin. A 2,000-pound sunfish only yields about 100 pounds of edible meat, and to make matters
Wow.
worse, it's loaded with parasites. To
What
deal
the
with them,
fuck?
the sunfish has a strange trick. It floats belly up at the surface, letting the sun's UV rays kill the parasites or waiting for seabirds to peck them off. Most fish panic and dart away when they're
That's
bitten.
fucking
The
gross.
sunfish, it just drifts
That's
calm
so
and
creepy.
dazed, as if nothing happened. But it's not because it's fearless, it simply has no tail, so it can't swim fast. And its skin has no nerves, meaning it doesn't even feel the pain. So when danger comes, it doesn't escape, it just accepts it. So why
That's
hasn't this
incredible.
clumsy fish gone extinct? The answer is pure numbers. A single female sunfish can lay more than 300 million eggs at once, a record for all vertebrates. And when they grow up, they're giants, up to 10 feet long. And why does this fish stay perfectly still when it's being...
This man dropped a nuke on the Democratic Party.
You hate white men unless they're gay. You love black people unless they're conservative. You're for illegal immigration as long as they don't come into your home. You want to ban guns, but you want the government to still have theirs. You hate capitalism, but you expect these corporations to change their logo for Pride Month. You hated slavery, so you hate the party that was formed to abolish the slaves. You hated slavery, but you align with the party that was for keeping slaves. You don't recognize two genders unless you're talking about their hormones. You hate American values, but yet you want to still live here. You say black people can't be racist, but Candace Owens, Thomas Sowell, and Larry Elder are white supremacists. You want to ban guns to save children, but keep abortion to murder them.
This man.
Shit, what was that?
Is there a black person here?
What did you just say?
Everyone got confused after...
You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but it would be interesting just to hear the contrast between your own voice and Edith. Now that we've just heard you talk, let me see, I'll just give you a line. If you were to say as Edith now, my husband Archie wouldn't agree with you. Could you lapse into it?
Would you excuse me if I didn't do that?
Sure, I can see why you might not want to. Tell me why you'd rather not. That's interesting.
Well,
The Germans said, well, the Sherman tank is not very good. We met it. It's got a 75 millimeter, even a 76 millimeter gun can't penetrate either a Panther or a Tiger. It's only got 3 inches of armor. Ours have 6. We can blow them apart 2 miles away. And the Americans said, in answer to this, maybe so, but not if there's 1 Tiger or 1 Panther on the battlefield for every 6 Sherman.
Immediate thoughts.
Yeah.
And now we're going to return to the program that we originally recorded on Tuesday the 9th. We're back with the Victor Davis Hanson show.
Whatever the gods may be. The fight on the beaches. The fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall never surrender.
I'm Victor Davis Hanson. I'm a senior fellow in classics and military history at Stanford University's Hoover Institution, and I'm a...
Hello, I want to thank everyone for coming. My name's Jim Carafano. I'm the...
readily brings complex... Really the first American war. Thank you very much.
Please join me in welcoming Dr. Victor Davis Hanson.
Thank you very much. I'll try to speak just 35 minutes, and I'd welcome questions for the rest of the allotted time. I mentioned to my host that if I sound a little different, I had a bad accident 3.5 weeks ago, and I have 75 stitches in my mouth and broke my nose. So this is the first time I've been out, and I hope you don't think I'm as crazy as I feel. We're schizophrenic about World War I. If you read the late John Keegan or Neil Ferguson, World War I was a catastrophe. It was an in-house squabble between like-minded European complex and taught Americans with inferior tank stitches. And I asked Al how much money we would lose with all the cancellations. So suddenly I got cured. And I wanted to tell Larry when he mentioned all of these disasters, I thought, I hope Hillsdale's not the common denominator. But it hasn't been for me. It's been a wonderful experience, 15 years coming here. I'd like to talk just about 35 minutes, not just about George Patton and the tragic view, but our strange and ambiguous relationship in the United States between generals and politics. You know, we've had 12 presidents that were generals, but none of us really know any of them. And who cares whether Chester A. Arthur was a general? We remember that Harrison and his grandson, or Pierce or Taylor, but most of the generals we don't. Andrew Johnson, who cares that he was a brevet brigadier general? We have 4 that became presidents. with the exception of Jackson, they were pretty much apolitical. By that I mean Grant was a unionist more than he was a radical Republican. And I think both Democrats and Republicans approached Eisenhower, and no one was quite sure what side he was on. And Washington, of course, was the father of our country. But we have had, if we haven't had overt, and we have, by the way, we had 3 generals, remember, working for Donald Trump at one time. General Kelly, the Chief of Staff, General Mattis, Secretary of Defense, and H.R. McMaster, the Lieutenant General, was a National Security Advisor. I have a feeling 2 out of the 3 of them either didn't vote for Trump or won't vote for him next time. So I guess they're called bipartisan or apolitical. But we have had ideological generals. And I don't know if ideology is the right word for it, but we've had generals who connected what they did on the battlefield with a larger view of human nature. And I guess we would call it the tragic or pessimistic view that we are born into this world pretty despicable or evil, and religion and culture and civilization save us, but it doesn't always reach everybody. And there's always going to be people who want to take things that are not theirs, whether on the personal or national level, or they're psychopathic and they like to kill people. And it's the duty of certain people among us, this view I think some generals have, that they have certain talents and they spot these people and they're willing to do what it takes to protect the innocent from them. And out of that ideology, they also develop a conservative or reactionary political view. And you think of MacArthur, but in our own history, think of William Tecumseh Sherman, Curtis LeMay, and Matthew Ridgway. And they don't end up well. They have a dark view of human nature, and we're a therapeutic, sunny society, an upbeat society. And when we're done with them, we're done with them. They provide a useful service. Sherman said, "I will not run for office. If nominated, I will not accept the nomination. If elected, I will not enter the presidency." And people thought to this day that he was a barn burner, that he was a terror. I see the word terrorist in Sherman. Sherman had a philosophical view, a tragic view, that they were in an existential war and a lot of innocent people were getting killed, and the people who had precipitated that war, he called them the Chevalier class in the South, should not function with impunity at home. And so when he went to Atlanta and the March to the Sea and the March to the Carolinas, if you actually do the terrible arithmetic of how many people he killed vis-a-vis that summer of the Army of the Potomac with Grant locked with Lee, there were far fewer dead, but he did something that was unspeakable. He destroyed property and he humiliated an entire class, and he developed an ideology and explication of what he was doing and why they deserved it. And that was intolerable. And to this day, when Grant can have been responsible for some of the most bloody battles in the history of American wars, but Sherman has an asterisk next to his name. The same is true of another general. I mean, we all love Hap Arnold. We hear of Toohey Spats, Doolittle, but when we say Curtis LeMay, we stop. Some of you think the cigar. We don't ever hear that he had Bell's palsy on a record flight, set the distance record in 1937 in a B-17. On the way in the flight, he got Bell's palsy, stuck a cigar there to absorb the dripping of saliva. So it wasn't some Hollywood gimmick to be tough. It was a way of trying to disguise a disfiguring ailment. But he ended up after the war, remember, as the model of Buck Turgidson and Dr. Strangelove. And then during the Cuban Missile Crisis, people caricatured him because he wanted to be pretty tough with the Soviet Union, and he ended up running tragically with George Wallace as his vice president candidate, third party, American Independence Party in 1968. We forget that he actually tried to convince Wallace not to run on a segregationist or racist ticket, and he was one of the first green candidates we've ever had. But we had this image that LeMay said that it would be inhuman for 1 million people to die invading the mainland of Japan, and he could do it through bombing, and he inherited the B-29 $2 billion, bigger than the Manhattan Project, and they had no results from China, India, or from the Marianas. And he took this wonderful high-precision, high-altitude bomber that could fly up to 28,000 feet, and he took it down to 5,000 feet, and he basically created a 4-engine dive bomber and filled it with 20,000 pounds of napalm, and in 90 days burned down 65% of the urban industrial area of Japan. And he was adamantly opposed to the 509th Composite Bombing Group because he didn't think the atomic bomb was necessary. In other words, he thought that he could, as he said, render Japan into a pre-modern state. Had the war gone on, he had plans to use 4 airfields from Okinawa and to bring, remember the war in Europe had ended in May, and there were 10,000 4-engine B-24 and B-17 and Lancaster bombers that were idle, another 8,000 2-engine bombers, B-26s and B-25. He was going to aggregate them with 2,500 B-29s from the Marianas, triple the mission capacity because Okinawa was a third of the distance, and finish off the rest of the Japanese industrial sector. It's a pretty nightmarish scenario, but the idea that he was behind all of that, remember he said if we lose the war, I'll be tried as a war criminal, was that we're not going to send people who had nothing to do with this war from Nebraska and Missouri and invade the mainland when people who are actively killing 15 million people in China are going to escape a rendezvous with judgment. That's what he said. Matthew Ridgway inherited in late December of 1950 a losing Korean War. Remember the Chinese had crossed the Yalu. We had gone up in November, MacArthur had, and General Walker, as you go north, you know, the peninsula widens. In November, the weather worsens, and the proximity to China decreases. And the F-80 was not able to provide air support against a MiG-15 for B-29s. So essentially, we sent 150,000 people farther and farther from their supplies and closer to 1 million Chinese soldiers, and we didn't have adequate air. If you look at the 6 belligerents, the major Italy, Germany, and Japan, and the United States, the Soviet Union, and Britain, and you do a simple calculus, how many soldiers and civilians in each of those countries lose and how many did they kill? It's not even close. Japan lost about 3 million to 3.2 million civilians and soldiers. They killed over 16 million Chinese.
It is the anniversary of the Nagasaki bombing tomorrow. A couple of days ago, it was the Hiroshima bombing 80 years ago. This is obviously the first use of the nuclear weapons in whatever on the city, and isolationists, like Tucker Carlson, have said this was a war crime. This was a huge mistake. This was the murder of hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians, children, women, and so on. And Japan was already going to surrender. This was done because America had invested so much money in the bomb that they wanted to use it to kind of scare the Soviets, and it was a terrible war crime. I suspect that you disagree with that.
Yeah, everything you related, and I'm a friend of Tucker, but he gets a lot of his ideas from this blogger Daryl Cooper, and everything you said is demonstrably untrue if you're quoting him. First of all, Curtis LeMay had been bombing since March 10th and had destroyed 85% of the industrial capacity of Japan. And that campaign had killed about 250,000 to 300,000. The 2 bombs, a lot of it is very hard to find out because it depends on what you call a fatality, whether 20 years later a person got leukemia. Although the recent studies show that a lot of people did not get leukemia birth defects as had been predicted. But the point that I'm making is that about 60 to 80,000 died tragically at Hiroshima and maybe 60 to 70 at Nagasaki. Why did they use... LeMay said afterwards, this was not necessary, you could have let me go. So there were alternatives to using the bomb, and there were basically 3 alternatives, and they discussed them. The first alternative was to invade the Japanese islands in November of 45 and in February, March of 46. And they did statistical analyses based on their estimation of how many Japanese soldiers were still active in Japan on the mainland and kamikaze. And they looked at 2 campaigns. Okinawa, which, by the way, had only been declared secure about 4.5 weeks before. And they came up with this figure. They said 100,000 Japanese troops and 60,000 paramilitary Okinawans killed 12,000 Americans. They damaged or sunk 300 ships. They shot down 700 planes, and we ended up with 50,000. And if you multiply that by the number of people they have on the mainland, well, they'll fight much more vigorously, and the kamikazes will be much more effective. We're going to have 1 million casualties. That's what they said. And we don't want that. The other idea was just to let LeMay keep bombing. And many of the Japanese higher command said that this was the shock that put them over the edge, but it was the firebombing that made them come to the table. And the firebombing stopped most of the activity of the overseas expeditionary forces eventually, because they mined the harbors, they blew up most of their munitions plant. And then the third alternative was simply to, as some people wanted, to have a negotiated surrender. But as you know from the Casablanca conference, Churchill and Roosevelt said there's going to be unconditional surrender. So there were 3 bad choices, and they chose to use the bomb to shock them. And the funny thing about it was they had a commission, and who was the head of the commission? Liberal Mr. Oppenheimer. And they said, why? They gave Tucker should read that. They gave every scenario possible. Why don't we drop it right in Tokyo Bay? And they said, well, the first bomb is we only have 1 plutonium bomb that we know works because we let one off in July 16th. But we've never tried the uranium bomb, and it's very dangerous, and that's the first one we're going to use. If we drop it in Tokyo Bay and it doesn't work, are we supposed to announce it and say, look, here's the weapon we have, we're going to drop it, and then it's a dud? Yeah. And then the second thing was, we have to fly 1,600 miles from Tinian with a bomb that we don't even know if it's live or not. They didn't get the safety device to about 2 weeks before they dropped it. And then they said, well, if we drop it, then we only have 1 bomb, and that's the plutonium bomb. We know it works, but if we drop that, we're not going to have another bomb until at least a month, and maybe not 3 or 4 until the end of the year. And the Japanese are going to say, well, it's no worse than the firebomb. It's less people died in Nagasaki, which was the secondary target, than or Hiroshima, wherever they had dropped it. And now they probably don't have one. The other thing is, when he says that it was not ever intended to be used against the Japanese. The Manhattan Project was in response to British and American intelligence that Hitler was working with heavy water and was ahead of them. So their whole idea was to use the bomb in Europe. And by the time that was ready in August, the European war was over. The other irony is, when we took Okinawa, we invaded April 1st. It was declared secure, I think, June 15th, but there were still people fighting in mid-July, remnants. We built these airways, and LeMay said, we have 2,000 B-29s that are flying 3 times a week from Tinian and Guam and Saipan, 1,600 miles up, 1,600 miles back, and they're only over the target for an hour. But we have Okinawa now, and it's only 800-900 miles from Tokyo, and we